Good morning, everyone. It is a couple minutes after 9, so we're a few minutes late in starting our meeting. I'll call to order the special meeting of the San Diego County Local Agency Formation Commission, Monday, September 10th, 2018. Item number 1 is call to order. Do we have, you want to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Blakespear?
Your
Commissioner.
speaker isn't on. It's down below.
Toggle switch your hip.
To the left.
Present.
There you go.
Commissioner Horn?
Here.
Commissioner Jacob?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Here.
Commissioner Sprague?
Present.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Present.
Commissioner Wells?
Here.
Commissioner Zapp is absent. Alternate Commissioner Bragg is absent. Alternate Commissioner Cox is absent. Alternate Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Mathis?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Kate is absent. There is a quorum with 7 members present. So ends the roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Wells, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you. Agenda review.
No changes, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is public comment time. Now is the time for anyone in the public who would like to speak to the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone that wants to address the commission? Seeing none. Our next item, which everyone is here for, is the public hearing. There are I have a few comments before we start on this, though I don't anticipate us taking the 3 hours. If you'll notice when you came in, it was a 3-hour parking limit. That has been waived. So you don't need to set your clock and leave if we're going over the 3 hours. Please, when you come to the podium, we're starting with the 2 applicants, and then the presentations of the groups, and then we will go to the individual speakers. Please speak to the commission, and please speak directly into the mic because we have an air conditioner behind us, and it's going to be difficult for those of us who are sitting right here to hear if you're not speaking directly into the mic. So we're here to hear the facts, and we want to be maintain decorum and respect for everyone because this is a public hearing. And please stick to the facts so that we can make the decision as to the best service provider for the community of Julian, Cuyamaca, and the best cost to the community itself. As I said, please direct your comments to the commission, and please don't engage the audience and the speaker. I know that there are some individuals who would like to be heard, so let's be respectful of them. The speakers, individual speakers, have 3 minutes. On the podium, there are lights. Green means go. Yellow means you have 1 minute to wrap it up, and red means you're done. So please keep your eyes on the podium, and then that way also, if you don't engage with the audience, you're going to be able to see those lights. Otherwise, you're going to have a red light before you get half of what you want to say out. So we're going to start with the staff report and move on from there. So at this time, I will open the public hearing for the rescheduled August 6th meeting for the joint organization and associated sphere amendment, concurrent dissolution of the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District, and latent power area expansion of County Service Area 135, which is the County Fire Authority. We'll have a staff report.
Thank you,
staff.
Chair. So I'm going to begin, and I have about 10, 15 minutes of an overview before we hear from our applicants, and then ultimately from the audience. But I want to start off things by extending some appreciation to your staff commission. John Traylor, Linda Zambito did a great job managing this proposal, getting us here today. I also want to, and likewise, extend appreciation to Commission Counsel Holly Watley, who certainly has helped us with the report before you and helped staff navigate some issues that come up when you process a proposal like this with some moving parts. And I reference all three names, Linda, John, and Holly, because it is reasonable to assume, Commission, we will hear from all three as we look to drill down on some details and then to answer your questions. So with that said, and in the most simplest terms, Commission, the item before you today is a joint request from the subject agencies themselves. And just parenthetically, under the world of LAFCO, this means we have a friendly proposal before you. And it is to transfer fire protection and emergency medical services from the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District to the County of San Diego, to its fire authority and through its operating arm, County Service Area number 135. And as you can see on the screen that we have for you, the map, the affected territory itself is about 52,000 acres in size. By our count, there's about 4,100 residents, and of that amount, there's about 2,300 or so active registered voters. Now, what is not reflected on this map, but certainly shown and discussed in the agenda packet, is that entirely surrounding this jurisdictional boundary is the activated latent power service area for fire and emergency medical for County Service Area 135, a boundary that this commission back in 2008 established. So from the perspective of CSA 135, this would be considered a service island. Now, with details to come, the motivation, the purpose of the proposal before you is the subject agency's shared determination that the reorganization will help stabilize service and funding levels within this area for fire protection and emergency medical today and most importantly going forward. And that would be accomplished by eliminating and dissolving the duplication of a less equipped special district, in this case the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. The Commission's task today is to independently assess whether you believe the proposal before you makes sense relative to all of the things that LAFCO law and your policies have you consider. And as the Chair already mentioned, your focus is ultimately not only what is best for the constituents today, but the law is very clear, Commission, what is best for future constituents going forward. Now, with respect to our own take on this proposal, certainly there is a lot of history, there's a lot of context to how this proposal got to us today. I believe the agenda report does a good job of covering that backstory, so I'm not going to go down those details. I also know that we have our two applicants in attendance today, and they are prepared to provide you a formal presentation and cover some of the details of why and what this proposal ultimately means to the constituents. So the details that staff would otherwise want to cover in our presentation, I will defer to the agencies. So what I would like to do is focus my comments going forward on what I think is at least the staff lead, and that is our recommendation for this commission today to go forward and approve the proposal as it's been submitted without any modifications. Approve the proposal with terms, and I'm going to talk about what those terms are, but again, the lead is staff is recommending approval today. And up on the screen, one more slide, you'll see there are basically four broad policy considerations that is driving the staff recommendation today and why we have a green light as opposed to either a yellow or red light. And I want to walk through each of these because certainly it is pertinent to our own decision-making at staff. And first and foremost, the proposal before you makes sense under LAFCO law. In our estimation, the county fire authority alternative, which you are considering today, represents the best level of service at the best cost to the constituents. And that's based not only on qualitative statements that address various state factors, but also quantified data that we have in your agenda report. And I think, Commission, this comment is best illustrated by the following. The County Fire Authority option that you are ultimately considering today would be able to raise service levels by virtue of transitioning from a volunteer as available staffing schedule model to permanent 24 hours, 7 days a week professional firefighters, while also being able to reduce direct costs to the constituents. And that latter comment is highlighted by the county's ability to leverage its economies of scale, absorb the cost of the recent fire station build in Julian, and eliminate an existing $50 a year special parcel assessment to the constituents. So again, the county option raises service levels and does so while also reducing costs to the constituents. Certainly under LAFCO law, that is a key consideration. And as we then transition our thinking from what the state has us consider at LAFCO to what your own policies provide, certainly the proposal syncs up well with what you and your predecessors have previously concluded on the topic of fire protection services in the unincorporated area. About 10 years ago, and many of you were on the commission at that time, and certainly John Traylor was lead for staff on this endeavor, this body did extensive studying about how fire protection in the unincorporated area could be improved. And ultimately, you concluded that the best long-term option was to create a single vehicle for fire protection and emergency medical services, and over time consolidate smaller agencies into that uniform entity. And in step with that decision, Commission, you created the mechanism of CSA 135 as we know it today, as a fire protection and emergency medical service provider. What the Commission did in the early 2000s was qualified this determination that ultimately County Fire Authority should be the service provider in the unincorporated and rural areas by saying when the timing is right. So that leads us to this question before you today. Commission, is the timing right? Well, staff would certainly suggest, staff would certainly suggest, I apologize. Thank you so much. I am doing it as we speak right now.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, these mics only come so far, so commissioners, we're going to have to speak up.
Thank you so much. So, to be clear, the commission back in the early 2000s made a determination that ultimately fire protection services in the unincorporated and backcountry areas should be under one operating arm. And the determination at that point was the County Fire Authority was best equipped to do this over the long term. Now, the commission qualified its statement by saying when the timing is right, incremental consolidations should occur. So the question before the commission today is the timing right for the Julian consolidation to occur? Staff's conclusion is that the decision by the Julian Cuyamaca board to independently file for dissolution, coupled with our own analysis of all of the factors that are in your staff report, provide the quantified evidence that yes, the timing is right, Commission, under your policy direction established many years ago for this reorganization to proceed. Now, third, all proposals have some sharp edges. The legislature empowers this commission to term approval to soften and smooth those edges. So There are about 30 terms or conditions that are tied to this proposal before you. The vast majority of those terms were negotiated between County Fire Authority and Julian Cuyamaca's board, and they certainly reflect the existing and template language that this commission has used in the past, and most recently with the Pine Valley Fire Protection District consolidation. Your staff has gone through those conditions that the agencies have proposed, and they all make sense. We have added 2 additional terms to the approval that staff believes further helps the implementation, and I just want to quickly cover those. First, and this is directed to the Julian Cuyamaca board, we believe it would be appropriate for this commission to term approval on their board before dissolution, entering into an interim contract for an outside vendor to assume existing ambulance transport service responsibilities in the Julian region, an obligation that this fire protection district is under through a contract that's been in the books for several years now with County Health and Human Services. And for various reasons, the county, CSA 135, is not positioned to assume going forward. Now, the contract runs through the end of this fiscal year, so our condition is find a contractor to take the responsibilities and arrangements and run through the term of this contract, again, June 30th of 19. We are also recommending that the county, or excuse me, Julian Cuyamaca, add to that condition that the successful contractor offer employment, equivalent employment to the 6 existing fire protection district employees who are currently providing airport transportation services, again, through the end of this fiscal year. This is a condition that both agencies, and in particular Julian Cuyamaca board, has signed off on. The second of the 2 special terms that LAFCO staff is proposing here is directed to the county, and that is for the county to create a Julian-specific subcommittee to its fire advisory board, all for the purposes of creating a explicit vehicle for the community to provide feedback to the county as this transition in governance in fire services occurs. We think it's appropriate that you prescribe some categories, and to that end, and with the county's concurrence, those categories would be 1 member from the current Julian Fire Protection District Board, 1 member from the Julian Chamber, and then finally 1 member, assuming they would like to participate, from the Julian Fireplugs Association. Last but not least, the Community Commission ultimately gets to participate in your decision-making should you agree with staff and approve this proposal today, and that is because protest proceedings apply. Protest ensures that both landowners and registered voters will have the opportunity to say up or down whether they agree that this proposed and recommended change in governance and service occurs from going from the Julian Cuyamaca board to the County Fire Authority. I'm sure we will talk about this item in more detail, specifically the protest proceedings, but certainly in this case, knowing that protest applies is relevant because staff is certainly aware there is opposition to this item within the community. Staff cannot offer up whether it's the majority of the community or a minority of the community, but we do know that there is opposition. Protest is the state vehicle to vet and determine that level, and if the majority of the community does not want this reorganization to occur, it will not occur. So those are the 4 broad policy points that is driving the staff recommendation for you to proceed today with an approval. Certainly, we are available for questions. We are available to go into further detail as you see fit. John Traylor is available to discuss operational issues. Linda Zambito is available to discuss our financial analysis. I do want to point out we received a number of written comments on this action. They are essentially grouped into three groupings, if you will. All of the comments we received on this proposal, once we received it in April and through mid-July, they made it into our executive officer report, and they're provided as attachment 5. We then received a second batch of written comments following the July 15th, 16th initial deadline to about early last week. That includes a submittal by County Fire Authority that further outlines their game plan for services. That is provided as a memorandum and is available to the public, and I believe all the commissioners received a copy. And then finally, we did receive just a few late-minute submittals over the last 2 days. That's also provided to you in memorandum form. Again, copies are available to the public. That includes a letter from the Julian Fireplugs Association, their attorney, Craig Sherman. I'm going to ask our commission counsel to quickly address that before I turn this back to the chair. But again, at the end of the day, Commission, you have a proposal before you that has a recommendation to approve. And should you feel you have information, sufficient information to act today, our recommendation would be covered under a successful motion of alternative action 1. So with that, Chair, let me hand this off to our Commission counsel before you take it back. Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know that we did receive and have reviewed the September 7th letter from the attorney for the plaintiffs in the ongoing litigation. I've reviewed it. There's nothing in there that raises any concern from the legal side in terms of the Commission's ability to take action today. The trial court, as you know, agreed with LAFCO, the district board, and the county that the application of the resolution of application, rather, was not subject to referendum. That is on appeal, but currently there are no court orders or any impediment to the commission acting today.
Any questions of staff or our counsel? Hearing none. We'll move on to the applicants. Julian Cuyamaca Fire Board.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, staff. My name is Jack Shelver. I'm the President of the Board of Directors of the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I understand you have it available to you, so I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading it, but I do want to move through it and make a few side comments. I expect this will take 7 or 8 minutes, and that'll leave a few minutes for the other 2 board members who wish to speak.
Okay, the presentations, we're looking at allowing you that timeline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Julian Cuyamaca Volunteer Fire Companies were created in 1970, later combined to form the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. Served the community for nearly 50 years and served it very ably. Currently, though, we are down to about 10 or 12 volunteers and 30 reserves. I'll make the distinction between volunteer and reserve. There is a clear distinction between those, but I'll do that a bit later. Okay. Am I pushing? Thank you. A number of challenges are facing the district over the short and long-term future. There has been an increasing demand for service over the recent years. Our financial resources are limited. Budget reserves have reduced over the last few years. In addition, we're having difficulty in retaining and recruiting new volunteers, as well as the turnover of reserves. Uh, the Over the last 4 years or so, there's been considerable debate whether the Board of Directors would support dissolution. We've talked about it from time to time, and as late as a little more than a year ago, 2 years ago, we considered dissolution and voted against that. But in late 2017, facing pressure, in 17 we decided not to further consider dissolution. However, a few incidents occurred in early 18 that changed our minds. We've struggled to maintain legal compliance with safety regulations and so on over the years, and partly because of the size and fiscal limitations. This struggle, of course, goes away with consolidation. This is just a brief overview of our staffing challenges over the last 6 months. We have concerns about our facilities. One of our stations is in very, very bad shape. It's very old. Even the new station has some shortcomings that resulted from a shortfall in construction funds when the station was built. If consolidation occurs, Station 57, which is in Cuyamaca, the old one that was built by volunteers years and years ago, will be abandoned. We expect to transfer it to a local community organization to be a community center for the Cuyamaca area. Well, I skipped past the budget considerations, but you have a copy of that. Suffice to say that our current budget is in deficit by about $30,000. If we had a realistic budget, which included the other things that we think should be done by a fire district, we would probably be in deficit close to $200,000. There's my, well, you have the, there's a citizens initiative that's been proposed that will increase the benefit fee from $50 to $200. That'll raise roughly $350,000. However, in order to bring the district up to speed with the items that are in the initiative, including hiring a full-time chief and staffing an ALS fire engine, the demands would far exceed that income, demands on our budget. And in summary, majority of the board has voted to request this dissolution and consolidation. One last item that's very important to me is that when the other districts have dissolved around the backcountry, the insurance service office rating has gone down to a 3. ISO rates on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being bad, 1 being very good. In Julian, the outlying areas where I live is an 8. When I moved there, my insurance agent said if it were a 9 or 10, I couldn't write your policy. We're reading in the papers about fire insurance policies being canceled in high fire-prone areas, and I think raising our ISO rating, or lowering, I should say, to a 3 or a 3X will help current residents keep their fire insurance and enable new residents to be able to acquire fire insurance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the board who wishes to speak?
Put my glasses on. Good morning. My name is Ida Tucker. I'm a longtime resident of Julian, 30 years. I have been an ongoing servant of the community, and I am also on the board of directors, elected and currently serving as vice president of the JCFPD. I have been on the JCFPD board actively for a total of 14 years. During my time on the board, I have seen many changes, some successes we were able to achieve and some failures due to our lack of resources and funds. You have already seen during the PowerPoint presentation facts that clearly show the deficits, financial struggles, lack of staffing, and the multi-layered challenges that we as a district and community have faced and are still facing. What I would like to convey at this time, and what the opposition has lost sight of, is the very thing that everyone should be concerned with. The topic of the session should be on this very subject, which is the mission of all first responders, the protection of life and property. That is their specific job and the role they take as a first responder. It is the board's specific job and mission to be able to ensure our staff's safety while they are trying to achieve the mission of protecting life and safety with sound fiscal and procedural and operational sustainability. How can I myself, in good conscience, tell our community that we are ready for the emergency when our district cannot provide, have the resources, nor even afford what we need to provide to protect our staff and community to the highest level of standard? We are talking about human lives. To me, we as a district can only be held to the highest level of standard. It is our responsibility to ensure that. Sadly, the district and I myself at this time, due to a multitude of issues, cannot. It is morally wrong to misrepresent to you, the staff, and the public the facts that we can. Originally, many times, I have voted to stay independent. During the course of several board meetings regarding the district, our liability to both the staff and community, and a January fire, it was absolutely clear to me that it was impossible and irresponsible to stay independent. When given another opportunity to vote again, I knew in my heart what had to be done, which was to dissolve. Having CAL FIRE at our station 24/7 since June 1st has been a win-win for the safety of our staff and as well as our community at large. The county has the resources and funds to be able to put forward keeping everyone safe while protecting life and property. This is the solution for our community and our staff. I have loved our volunteers and have always stood behind them for the 14 years I have been on the board. I have participated in making sure that the volunteers have been taken care of. The board, along with Chief Marinelli and the community, have made sure in providing them with a brand new station as of April of 2016. We have depended on them, relied on them, celebrated them, and acknowledged them as our heroes. The county is willing to take the volunteers and reserves. That being said, they must meet minimum qualifications and participation to remain active volunteers. Those that cannot meet those qualifications can still participate in such activities as water tender driver or other support activities. The county encourages a community's volunteers and reserves participation. The volunteers and reserves do not have to end their service to our community. If our volunteers were really about serving our community with their very mission to keep themselves safe while protecting life and property, then they would jump on board in a minute. It appears that most of the volunteers are too busy with their own agenda of fighting the fight, winning at all costs, and a cost to theirs and their fellow firefighters' safety, along with our community's safety, instead of the exact mission of why they became a volunteer to begin with. In closing, I just wanted to let you know that a particular group of people on the opposition have done nothing but spread rumors and lies, made accusations, coerced and manipulated the community into signing referendums, slandered and defamed us board members and our staff on social media and with the media in general, participated in harassment and threatening us, helped facilitate and encourage filing numerous frivolous lawsuits against us using our JCFPD name for a fundraising flyer that we have not seen a dime of. And I have to say, I have often wondered how a 501c3 solicited, received, and used these funds in our name. I have never conducted nor participated in any secret meetings or backroom deals, or have I received compensation, benefits, special treatment, or perks during my entire 14 years service as a board member. I urge you to be cautious, and I give you fair warning as someone who has experienced it firsthand. Please consider this when you cast your vote. Thank you for listening and your consideration in providing for a safer community for residents of Julian. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there, any other speakers for the fire district?
Good morning. My name is Kirsten Starlin. I am a board member and a California State Certified Volunteer Firefighter at JCFPD. I don't do well public speaking, so I apologize now. On the slide that President Shelver displayed on January 2nd, we did have a captain who responded who was driving the engine. Took him, I believe, 18 minutes to get onto that call, which was just on the edge of town. He had to respond from work, go to the station, get the engine, bring it back to the scene of fire. The chief was criticized because he did not drive that engine, but that was not the chief's responsibility. The chief's responsibility was manage that fire. He was the IC. Because of him being there, after speaking to other chiefs at that fire, it was because they recognized his voice, they knew the way he called for resources in such a professional way, they knew it was serious business. And a shed fire that we should have been able to take care of with a properly staffed station, instead of a engine that only had 2 minutes of water with no water tender to back that engine up, air support was needed. I was there. I am on what they call temporary permanent disability because of a fall at the station. So I could not respond, but I was driving by and was first on scene as I saw it and smelled the fire with my children. I stayed, directed traffic, and monitored what was going on. I was there. I want to start by thanking CAL FIRE and all who have had a part in helping JCFPD's protect Julian. Your service and your professionalism has been appreciated by so many. Thank you. Last year, I first voted to remain independent. My vote was done based on my personal feelings and emotions about our community and our fire department. Today, I stand here with a changed vote. Having stepped away from my emotions in this decision, I saw clearly that this was my fiduciary duty and nothing less. This decision I made affected my lifelong dream of being a volunteer firefighter. When I would ask my neighbor, now retired Chief Marinelli, who's with his mom who's dying at this moment, not here today, I would ask him advice on many decisions and how I should act in the station as a firefighter, not as a board member all the time. He always reminded me that it boiled down to 3 words: life and property. It was very difficult to change my vote, but I don't regret it. Since my vote changed, I and my family have been threatened and hated by some. Blood was splattered on the front door of my steps. I was lied about and publicly bullied. The fire station became a hostile environment for me and others who didn't join the anti-county fight. I realized these firefighters were angry or scared of losing their passion for helping their neighbors. My goal was never to offend nor to hurt them, but to do what I truly thought what was best for my community. The protection of life and property, that has been my concern. When CAL FIRE's ALS Engine 50s pulled out of Julian in January, the reality was we were on our own, and it scared me. Every time a pager sounded, I prayed we were covered. Every time the ambulance left the mountain, which was a 2 to 3 hour turnaround minimum, I prayed that no one else would need them. I felt the fate of all the life and property lost if lost, would be on my shoulder. That is what I lived with. I wanted to change my vote. In early 2018, this year, after several incidents, I inquired if the county would still hold to their offer that had ended on the 1st of January. I asked if I could have a chance to re-vote. I had to make it right with the community and myself that I was looking out for them and not my own desires. I had no idea the turn of events that this would lead to, but I have no regret. Whether LAFCO accepts or rejects our application, whether the citizens of Julian support or overturn the vote, it is out of my control. I did to the utmost ability what I was placed here to do. I leave the board of directors in November. I chose not to rerun, and I leave with a clear conscience. And I have faith that CAL FIRE will do all they promised. I have faith that LAFCO will see to it that all the conditions are met. I have faith that Julian will come together, supporting all the folks, regardless of the patch on their arm. I continually ask God for his guidance and wisdom, and that faith influences my actions. I am at peace with whatever decision is made, and I thank you for this time.
Thank you for your comments. We now have Fire Authority, CAL FIRE. And can you reset the timer for 30 minutes? What? 15. I'm sorry. Well, it was you. I knew you wanted. Oh, there we go. Now I can see what the time is. So you get half of that time.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, good morning, Commissioners. Tony Mecham, County Fire Chief. Always a pleasure to speak before you this morning. So I wanted to start with a little bit of an overview of how we've gotten to where we were at. I want to take you back in history to 2003, 2004, with the original micro and macro study and subsequent work by LAFCO to recognize the reorganization of fire services in the unincorporated part of San Diego County. In 2004, the voters passed Measure C, which created this notion that we needed to regionalize and improve services. The Julian-Cuyamaca Fire Protection District was an active participant, as most fire agencies were in 2004. In 2007, Julian-Cuyamaca made a decision to not become part of the Fire Authority. However, in that same year, citing staffing and other ongoing challenges and not being able to meet response time standards, the Julian-Cuyamaca Fire Chief requested, and we entered as CAL FIRE, the state agency, entered into an automatic response agreement in both Julian and Cuyamaca. This issue was raised again in 2013 with a discussion about dissolution into the County Fire Authority. At that time, the board made a decision to not move forward with dissolution, but the county entered into a subsidy agreement recognizing the serious situation in Julian. We provided $60,000 of ongoing subsidy, no-cost 911 dispatching, no-cost fire marshal and fire prevention services, and also provided the district with fire apparatus, including a fire engine and a water tender. In 2015, the situation continued to deteriorate. We had a series of meetings with the district, and at that time, we entered into a 2.5-year agreement, the county did, with Julian-Cuyamaca to provide a paramedic fire engine in Julian and a 3-person BLS fire engine in the community of Cuyamaca and continue the subsidy. At that time, there was a discussion with the district that we needed to look at the long-term situation for the district. So there was a 2.5-year agreement at which time they would either seek financial assistance or at the end of that period dissolve. Starting last year in July of 2017, we had a series of meetings with the board. Ultimately, in October, they made the decision to not move forward with the LAFCO application. So concurrent with the terms and conditions of our contract, on January 1st, the county closed down the paramedic engine. We closed the Cuyamaca fire station, and we ended all subsidy to the district. As two of the board members have alluded to, on January 2nd, there was a structure fire in the community which had some challenges. That led us to get back to the table at the end of January of this year. In February, we returned staffing at one of the CAL fire stations through a winter agreement with the county. Ultimately, the board voted in May to file the dissolution, and on June 1st of this year, we re-entered with the paramedic fire engine in Julian, and in addition to that, we are also providing oversight and management currently to the Julian-Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. The simple fact of the matter is that Julian-Cuyamaca Fire Protection District has been subsidized by the county for the last 11 years, beginning in 2007. That subsidy last year was to the tune of $1.55 million. Prior to that, prior to the paramedic engine, we had nearly $100,000 of subsidy to the district, both through direct and indirect subsidies. We fully concur with the decision of the board that the district has significant challenges. In our dealings in Julian and Cuyamaca since June, we have identified significant issues with health and safety compliance, the status of the fleet and buildings, and other things that are through no fault of the individuals in Julian. It is really a matter of financial ability and the state of the economy to continue a modern fire district and fire operation. So what is the county's proposal for service and what is our plan? First, I cannot stress enough, we want to keep the volunteer and reserve firefighters. There's no inherent gain for the county to not have people that have served their community for many, many years to continue to serve their community. That comes with a requirement, though. We do not have a choice under occupational safety and health laws about not having firefighters meeting minimum legal standards. So we need to get these people to the minimum legal standard, and we would like them to say. A vote for dissolution is not a vote to eliminate the volunteer fire department. It is also an enhanced service, and I think more than anything, it provides long-term financial sustainability for the district. Should the dissolution proceed, the Julian-Cuyamaca Fire Protection District would become part of County Service Area 135. It would be served by a regional system of 42 fire and EMS fire stations. And as I said, we operate this cooperative integrated regional fire system, and that is based on a document that we refer to as our standards of coverage. We have a full-time data analysis unit that looks at trends and how we operate, and some conclusions or some things that we wanted to bring forward with our current system that we operate. And the first is we have 5, in addition to the paramedic fire engine in Julian, we have 5 paramedic engines that are capable of being within the boundaries of the Julian district within a 20-minute time frame. Our standard response plan to a structure fire includes 4 engines and a minimum of 13 personnel, and a serious medical emergency or traffic collision gets a minimum of 2 fire engines. We have response time standards, which I will go through, and automatically through the dissolution, the residents of Julian-Cuyamaca would receive the county's 3x ISO rating. This is just, I'm not going to get into this chart, but this just shows some of the analysis that we do when we look at communities. And if you look at our analysis of Julian on the right, at how high they rate in all of those categories, just in terms of road miles and segments and number of traffic accidents, they rate number 1 in the county, which necessitates that there be a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year paramedic engine that remains in the community of Julian. When we look at response time standards, we have response time standards that are set in accordance with the county general plan. I know it's a little hard to see, but just to the left of where it says Station 50, there's a very dark green patch. The downtown Julian area meets the population density of an urban area. We have a 5-minute travel time requirement there. 14% of the calls in Julian occurred in that area, and as you can see, we have an average response time or drive time of 3 minutes and 50 seconds. The mid-shade green are areas of population density rises to the rural. We have a 10-minute travel time standard. 41% of the calls were there, and as you can see, we're arriving in just a little over 7 minutes. And then the larger green area is an outlying land use based, again, on population density. But I think what's important here is 45% or almost half of the calls occur in that area, and we are still maintaining a response time standard of just over 10 minutes in those areas. I don't know why it's not, there we go. So this, it's a little hard to see, but the red represents this is the Cal Fire Station 50 that's located just across from the high school. This analysis represents a 5-minute travel time to those areas in red. This is the current Julian-Cuyamaca station, which we will keep open, that shows a 5-minute travel time standard within the community. This is our station in Cuyamaca, which I'll talk to in a minute, is located directly next to the volunteer fire station. This is a 5-minute travel time. So what's important is that, whoops, it's not advancing one. No. When you look at the travel time standard from all three fire stations, operating all three of these fire stations year-round, we have a large part of the district and a majority of the calls that are going to be served within a 5-minute travel time. County fire staffing. So what is the county fire proposing to bring to Julian? First, we will maintain a chief officer in the community 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are proposing a 3-person paramedic fire engine to operate out of Julian Station 56. We will maintain a 3-person basic life support at the CAL FIRE Fire Station 51 in Cuyamaca. And it's also important to note that in the community of Julian, CAL FIRE maintains 2 fire engines there. Both are funded for 9 months out of the year, and in most years, that station stays open year-round. So as a minimum staffing daily in the district, we'll have 7 personnel on duty, plus volunteer and reserve firefighters, and at other times, up to 13 or 14 people in the district. Something that's important to note is that we have created a special classification within the volunteer firefighter program. We normally require our personnel to work shifts at the station. Recognizing that we have a large segment of volunteers that live in the community of Julian, we have designed a program that will allow them to still sign up for 3 shifts a month, but as long as they're within 30 minutes of the fire station, they can cover from home and still continue to cover support equipment such as water tenders or coming in backfill when we have activity. Transfer of property. The current Julian Fire Station 56 will transfer to the County of San Diego. We are not proposing to transfer Fire Station 57 to the county, and here's why. The volunteer fire station is located directly adjacent to the CAL Fire Station in Cuyamaca. You can see that the property lines touch. Our assessment of the Station 57 revealed by County General Services and building inspectors that the facility is not inhabitable. The foundation is cracked and shifted. The plumbing and electrical are not to compliance, and it would not meet any health and safety standards for placement of 24-hour personnel at the fire station. The CAL Fire Station next door is a brand new $7.9 million essential services building. So we see this as we can adequately serve the community from Station 51 with a piece of county equipment operating out of the state facility. The equipment in Julian, the serviceable equipment, they do have some equipment that's in good shape that would transfer to the county and remain in the community of Julian. What the current county is adding to what is already there is a patrol, a water tender, the paramedic fire engine, and a chief officer vehicle. All of the volunteers and reserves that wish to, and this is their decision, would transfer to the county. I think it's important to note we have already transitioned approximately 25% of the reserve firefighters in Julian have already started the process to transition into the county. We've been conducting training in Julian. It's our intent to try and get all of those people brought over. Julian also operates an Explorer program through Julian High School. This is a program I'm deeply committed to. I started as an Explorer many years ago. We would like to continue this program at the high school. This is a great opportunity for young men and women to explore a career in public safety. I think one of the key elements of this proposal is the support services that the county brings. The county has a dispatch center, a full-service warehouse, fleet, IT, radio service facilities, that full suite of things that you need to run a fire department. The fire department is not just about responding to the calls. It's about how do we maintain everything else, and the county has that. Our community risk reduction, we provided fire marshal services in Julian for many years. We'll continue to do that from plan check through fire inspections, defensible space, supportive CERT programs, all of those things that reduce risk in the community. We know Julian is a very special place. They have a lot of identity with being Julian and community events, and we certainly plan on being a part of all of those events. Quick on the financial. Julian receives 185% of the 1% ad valorem tax. They have a $105,000 special benefit assessment fee, and they have a $115,000 special benefit fee for the fire station. The County of San Diego is intent on paying off the debt service for the fire station and eliminating that fee. So what would transfer to the county would be $290,000 in revenue. Our total budget is $2,060,000. Now that includes funding for apparatus replacement terms, all those other items that you would amortize in any other budget. So the net county contribution or annual infusion to Julian is $1.7 million of increased for fire protection. You've already heard from the executive officer about the creation of the subcommittee, so I won't repeat that, but we're very supportive of continuing the subcommittee. So a summary, we would like to remain to keep the existing volunteers and reserves. We will increase staffing in both communities, not only Julian but Cuyamaca. We will definitely reduce response times. We will provide first response paramedic service. It is important to note that currently, and they have a great ambulance service up there, they do a great job, but when they leave the community, they are gone for 2 to 3 hours transporting to the closest hospital down in the metropolitan areas. The paramedic fire engine will remain in the community. We propose to do this for no increase in fees or taxes. In fact, we propose to eliminate a $50 fee to the community. And with that, I'm certainly available to ask questions now or after the public hearing. Certainly come back up if you have any further questions.
Please ask.
I have one question.
Vice
Yeah, Tony, how many times have we had to use air attack in this section here?
All the time, and I want to draw that distinction. Regardless of the proposal before you, CAL FIRE, we sometimes get confused because I wear the hat of the CAL FIRE chief and the county fire chief. CAL FIRE will maintain the statutory wildland responsibilities in Julian and continue to do that regardless of that. So they'll still get the air support. And Julian's a very high wildland fire area, though, so the benefit with that paramedic engine or that increased staffing is we have more boots on the ground in the community.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Sprague?
Chief Mecham, one of the big criticisms is as CAL FIRE starts to move resources around the county for a wildland fire incident, that Julian, Cuyamaca area, specifically Julian, will be uncovered for an extended period of time. And having the volunteer force there allows them to have quick response during those times of resource deficit. What's the plan for that?
So that's a good question. A couple of things. We have to separate the county fire department from the state fire department. The state resources, yes, they belong to the state, and we move them up and down the state. On a day like today, I have 26 state-funded fire engines. The lowest that we've ever gotten to, because as soon as we start sending people north, we call back, the lowest that we've ever gotten to is 13 fire engines to cover the 18 CAL FIRE stations. So based on that analysis, one of the two stations, either the Cuyamaca or the Julian CAL FIRE station, is always going to have a CAL FIRE engine there during the declared fire season. The second and more important component is that the county-funded paramedic fire engine does not leave the community of Julian. That is a dedicated, it is funded by local entity to be there and remain in the community. The third component is that nothing would change. Those volunteers and reserves that still wish to come in when we get busy and cover their community, we would certainly continue to do that as we do in other areas. As soon as we start depleting resources, and more often than not, it's a fire in the county, not a fire out of the county, we bring back our reserve firefighters, we pay them an hourly wage, and we ask them to come in and augment our staffing. So in my opinion and view, we're never not going to have a career fire engine in the community.
Clarification, Chief. When there's large major fires outside of the area, don't other fire districts and cities send some of their resources north or east or west, as necessary?
Yeah.
So they aren't always, when there's a big fire,
That's true.
aren't at full complement?
Yeah, and that's true. We have probably the world's greatest mutual aid system in the state of California, and every fire jurisdiction in San Diego County participates in that. And so both for fires in the county and out of the county, yes, there are momentary periods when fire stations are uncovered because we have fires in the county or we've moved people out. Most of what the city and our fire districts do is if they send a strike team out today, everybody holds their personnel on tomorrow, or they immediately start calling people back to restaff those fire stations. So certainly, I'm not going to say that it could never happen that there was a fire in and around Julian where we were committed for a few hours, but through our extensive move-up system and ability to call people back, we immediately start backfilling those people that we've sent up north. And I think if you go back to the 2003 fires, this is something that is very sensitive for me and our staff. We are at the end of the state, and we put a limit on how much we send north because we know when the fires go to the north, we eventually are going to have a fire in San Diego, and I don't want to commit. And I think that's shared not only by myself, but all of the fire chiefs, that we don't overcommit.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
Great. Thank you for your time
Thank
this
you.
morning.
Okay, at this time, we'll go on to the speakers who wish to speak as a organization or representing an organization. And the first one is Philip Grimm, representing the Julian residents for CAL FIRE. And would, I'm sorry, what?
As an individual, I just misunderstood the question on the ballot.
Okay. What? Okay, well, I can't, got it as, okay, I'll do that. Okay. Then we have Mr. Shriver, representing JC FPD. Hmm? Shelver. Oh, okay, that was, okay. Couldn't read it, sorry. Okay, then we'll go on to those in opposition, and that would, I'm going to call three of you up at the same time. Please line up in order. The first one would be Patricia Landis, representing the Julian Fireplugs. The second would be Heather Rowell, representing Julian Cuyamaca Citizens. And the third person would be Michael Hatterley, maybe, representing someone, Firefighters Association. So, Ms. Landis, you're on. Thank you. And your 7 minutes will start. How many?
3 minutes. Individuals, 3 minutes.
No, those were
I'm representing an organization. I will be
Those
the
are-
only speaker, but I have 3 other people from my organization here.
Okay. Let's do the ground rules one more time before your time starts. So you push the button. Your group has 7 minutes, okay? You can take all 7, or you can take 6.5, and the last 3 get 30 seconds, okay? So you're on for 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Landis. I'm a property owner and registered voter in Julian. I'm a proponent of the initiative to raise the benefit fee for JCFPD. I formed the Julian Fireplugs and am representing that organization here today. The county and current JCFPD board will tell you that we do not have the finances to maintain JCFPD. This is exactly what Board President Shelver said 6 years ago. After that, we hired a fire chief, bought a new engine, built a new station, bought 2 ambulances, added 40 reserve firefighters, held numerous training academies, and organized many fundraising activities. We had approximately $100,000 in cash reserves 6 years ago. As of March this year, we had over $300,000 in reserves. Shelver was obviously wrong. In January 2019, we will begin receiving revenue from the current benefit fees and property taxes. This is the level of revenue that has maintained JCFPD for 34 years. Over 300 residents signed the petition to place the Citizens Initiative to raise the benefit fee on the November ballot. This will quadruple the income from current benefit fees. The JCFPD board inadvertently failed to do their duty in accordance with the Elections Code, and this caused an emergency ex parte hearing before Judge Timothy Taylor on August 30th. Judge Taylor ordered the registrar of voters to place the initiative on the ballot. This is an example of how 3 members of the JCFPD board have tried to advance dissolution of our district and have deliberately blocked attempts to allow the community to vote on the issue. Over 300 residents signed a referendum to rescind the resolution to dissolve JCFPD. The registrar of voters qualified the referendum for the November ballot, and then the county ordered the registrar of voters not to place the referendum on the ballot. Another example of how democracy is being subverted and residents are being denied their right to vote on this issue. If this commission votes to dissolve JCFPD, it will hold a protest hearing. I believe this is tentatively scheduled for October 16th. Julian volunteers are prepared to collect a minimum of 25% of valid registered voter signatures on protest petitions, and that will trigger a special election. A LAFCO special election could occur in late January or February. Julian Cuyamaca residents will finally be given the right to vote. We will oppose dissolution by a simple majority and finally put this matter to rest. In November, voters will elect 2 new board members to replace Jack Shelver and Kirsten Starlin. I am a candidate, and I am passionate about maintaining JCFPD, as are the other 2 candidates. The election code provides that new members will take office at noon on the first Friday in December, next following the general election, and prior to taking office, each executive officer shall take the official oath. I believe that will happen on December 11th at the regularly scheduled December meeting. This will change the result in 4 board members solidly opposed to dissolution. Unlike prior Fire Chief Marinelli and current Board President Shelver, the new board member will take all steps available to them to preserve JCFPD and raise the level of services to the community. This is the campaign platform and promise of each of the candidates. We are a volunteer fire department. We're a volunteer community, period. And we will take advantage of all available resources. We have over 24 highly educated and very experienced citizens who are actively working on plans to advance the goals and objectives of our historic volunteer fire department. These resident volunteers are firefighters, public accountants, doctors, registered nurses, educators, technology experts, and businessmen and women who will volunteer their time and services to JCFPD. They have a solid plan and are prepared to donate their time and services to restore JCFPD. Their ideas include review the budget and JCFPD finances, offer advice and services regarding accounting, contact donors and organize fundraisers, prepare grant applications, renovate the Lake Cuyamaca Fire Station, acquire replacement equipment including breathing apparatus, purchase a water tender with funds in the Volunteer Association account, and many other numerous and innovative ideas. While a small number of residents have voiced approval for county services, I remind you that dozens of volunteers have canvassed our district multiple times, and we are confident that the majority of residents support an independent volunteer fire department. This is exemplified by the number of people attending this meeting today. You can look at how many are opposed and how many are in favor. Most importantly, we want to retain local control of our fire department. We believe JCFPD can provide services that are far superior to anything that organizations that are 50 or 600 miles away can do, or by people with no real interest in our community. Thank you for your attention.
Next speaker. Okay, point of order here. We are trying to maintain decorum, so I am going to invoke the Senator Bill Craven rule, one clap. If you're for or against, one clap, and that's all. Otherwise, we're going to be here, and we're all going to be calling in for lunch. So, our next speaker, okay, you're definitely not Heather, so you must be Michael. Okay.
Good day,
You're on.
Chairman and members of the board. My name is Mike Hatch. I'm here to represent the Firefighter Association of Julian. It has been an honor and a privilege to work with the gentlemen and women of the Firefighters Association, the reserves who come out of our area, some as far away from LA and work in our community and provide service, most of it completely for free, and it's excellent service. First thing I'd like to mention is that the notice for proposal preliminary staff report from April 11th, 2018 has a staffing report that shows all those people that came for free as a zero. A zero. We are not zeros. This is in error. The person who put it out knows it's in error, and they did it anyway. The board actually voted for these zeros. On February 7th, 2018, Chief Marinelli sent out an email. Today we have the ambulance staff with 2 and 1 volunteer on duty who has not scheduled to be here, but came in because no one else is here. We had 1 reserve scheduled, but he is not able to come in. Jack Shelver, where are the other volunteers? They told us that we didn't need CAL FIRE because they could cover the district. So where are they, Jack? Board member, this sounds to most people incredibly dire, but yet the coverage on February 7th was better than the coverage Jack, Ida, and Kirsten voted for under the terms of dissolution that CAL FIRE is going to provide. Yes, better. The terms of dissolution would be 3 firefighters on 1 engine to cover our district. But what Jack and Rick chose to ignore was that on February 7th, the station was covered by 2 duty officers. Yes, Chief Marinelli is a duty officer, and yes, by his contract, he was required to drive the engine. 1 firefighter volunteer, 1 fire paramedic, 1 fire EMT. There were 4 other volunteers on the Hill that could have responded if necessary. That is not bad coverage. If the county takes over, as Rick, Jack, and Ida, and Kirsten want, there will only be 3 firefighters and possibly 1 reserve. The memorandum that just went out today, or this week, September 18th, 2018, unfortunately, we didn't have time to go over it. It came out a little late, but it has a lot of things that we find in error and unnecessary. One of the items, areas of concern, program needs, install emergency generator. It says that without this would result in the station being out of service and would affect readiness and service to the community. We went through the Cedar Fire and never lost readiness or service. We went through the Witch Fire, never lost readiness or service. We had recent power outages. The station functioned as needed and all calls were covered. Installing diesel exhaust systems, installing fire sprinkler systems, lighting arrestor systems. Most of the CAL FIRE stations do not have this equipment. All this is a way to run out our revenues, our funds, in order to close us down. Another item they noted was the asphalt. We have more asphalt than most fire departments. It's fine. Putting asphalt in is just another way to kill the budget so you guys can vote to close us down. Another item in there was response times. From Station 56 to Cuyamaca Woods, you're not going to get a 5-minute response time. If Cuyamaca is not staffed and it is a wildland truck, it's going to be 20 to 25-minute response times. Another item that they've said is that we're kind of a drain, I guess, on everybody. It was our crew that covered the 4-person fatality in 85's district a few years back. I know people that were on that call. It was well outside our district. Our crews covered it. It was our crews that covered the water tender on the Cocos fire. Is that not worth $60,000 a year? I think not. It was our crews that covered a double fatality on Christmas Eve in Shelter Valley, which is the San Diego County Fire Authority's area. Where were the San Diego County Fire Authority people? They probably called in sick so they could get Christmas off. Over and over again, I've heard people say that the volunteers can join County Fire Authority. County Fire Authority came in. There were close to 400 volunteers in San Diego County. I can't confirm that, but that's what I've heard. There are none left today. That is not true. They have systematically gone through our station and gone through personnel files and done everything they can to make sure that volunteers cannot respond. Another thing Chief Mecham said is that we are being subsidized by the County of San Diego. Chief Mecham is being subsidized by the state of California to a huge degree. On 19, there was a call in Tecate. It was a medical diabetic. All that was sent out was a Wildland engine and Medic 36. There was another call in Campo, medical violence involved. I'm sure Wildland guys are well trained for violence involved calls. Engine 3374 and Medic 47 were sent out. Where's San Diego County Fire Authority? I think they're being subsidized. Hamul, the medic from Tecate had to be sent to this, and it was a 51-year-old male who was sick. Engine 3373 and Medic 36 responded.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah. There was a fire at Clover Flats Elementary School. It's about a half a mile from the fire station. All the engines on I-8 corridor were stripped out to respond to this. It's a half mile from the fire station, a half a mile. The classroom's completely a total wreck. You can't use it anymore. These are a list of other calls that they only sent out a wildland engine and a medic. At the same time they were doing this, they were telling San Isabel Tribe that they couldn't respond because they didn't have like-for-like services. They didn't have a paramedic engine, so they couldn't respond in our area. There were calls right outside Mesa Grande's station within 2 miles that they were not allowed to go to because they did not have a paramedic. But yet CAL FIRE is sending their own engines without paramedic coverage to the same calls. That call had to wait for engine 85, which is about 9 or 10 miles away to get there. And the Mesa Grande engine could have been there probably within 5 minutes. I think most of the information you guys are getting today is erroneous. It's on purpose to get you to vote for what they want you to vote for. It needs to be reevaluated, thrown out, and started over. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. One. Okay, we have then Heather Raoul and David Toller. You each have 7 minutes.
I'm speaking. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. I have a nervousness problem when I speak, but I'm going to do my best. I'm representing many who could not be
Go
here.
ahead and give us your name for
Yes,
the record,
Heather.
please. Thank you.
Thank you. I am a part of a group, I'm representing part of a group who could not be here, many of whom could not be here, that urges transparency, ethics, and fidelity in government. I have always seen the glass as half full. It's easy to sell me crazy gadgets at the Del Mar Fair, and I once stood on the pro side of SDCFA. I was fooled. Mark Twain said, "It is easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled," and so I must do my best. I have only minutes to explain that dissolving JCFPD places the future blood of citizens and their property on your hands. But I could spend hours telling you a sordid tale of lies and sabotage that sounds like a third world country. I do not believe that you can ethically or morally overlook the egregious behavior, much of it with legal implications that have only begun to be told. What I have time for is to ask you to ask why. For example, ask why volunteers were refused for multiple positions, all qualified for non-firefighting positions to support the department. Ask why multiple votes were taken starting in 2013. Ask why a board member, after he told an obvious lie about JCFPD and was called on it, said, "Sometimes you must lie to get what you want." Ask why Mr. Allen from CAL FIRE Union said, "We are busier than we've ever been, demand is higher, and staffing levels aren't meeting that need, and volunteers fill a critical need." And yet, under SDCFA areas, volunteer numbers in San Diego County have fallen by over 400. Why is the staffing capped at Julian artificially low? Why was the August Academy canceled? Volunteers don't stay with SDCFA for many reasons, but those reasons are not physical fitness, etc. Why were viable solutions rejected? Why was the grant committee, experts say $580,000 likely would have been awarded to Julian, told that first the chief and then his secretary did not have time to provide data to apply? Why was the chief allowed to repeatedly violate his contract with no consequences? Why was he allowed to mistreat the public without reprimand, not participate in classes and training required of him. If the various violations are true, why was he allowed to leave with a nice $25,000 bonus that he did not meet the terms for? Why was it said and recorded before the vote, I don't care if this vote's illegal, we're going to vote anyway? Why haven't the board members promptly completed ethics classes as required? If the board knows of issues, why did they not make efforts to resolve? Why did they give a secretary a $35,000 a year raise to work 8 more hours a week if we're broke? Why was a supportive department battalion chief put on administrative leave for a discovered injury that was over 15 years old at an interestingly convenient time for those wishing to dissolve? Why was Julian told, of course, they could keep their volunteers, and then they were systematically disqualified with no other options offered? Vehicles needed for their use are missing, or a secretary is doing a bank run given the only vehicle not missing, keyless, or otherwise unavailable. Why are public funds being spent in ways that 2 different financial analysts pointed out are obnoxious, while public safety violations were not resolved? Why were measures to reduce workmen's comp costs not even considered by the board? Why did the board fight the initiative to raise funds by the citizens? Research it. Corrupt to the point that the judge actually mentioned malpractice. I will send an email with some of the remaining ones because I don't read that fast. How can you make a decision that's based on misinformation? I understand that conquering Julian is the goal of some politically powerful people, but I ask you, at what cost? We need every hero. Winston Churchill once said, to each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared for what could have been their finest hour. You are in that moment now. 2 or 3 men and a 2-wheel drive truck engine that cannot traverse much of the geography of Julian in their game of musical stations with additional help 30-plus minutes away, and I'm sorry, I've seen the times, would spell death for some and destruction of homes, property, and lives. It's okay until it's your life, until it's your son or your daughter on the motorcycle, until it's your aunt with chest pain, or my neighbor's house on a fire recently. I watched as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 EMS vehicles arrived at my neighbor's home within 11 minutes, and 12 trained personnel saved their home, an impossible response under the SDCFA plan. We are trusting you to do what is right. Change the LAFCO documents so that Julian and Cuyamaca as a volunteer station don't have to have our safety sacrificed on the altar of corruption, greed, and twisted political goals, and we can return to working with our amazing and taxpayer-funded CAL FIRE stations as we always have. Please don't stand by while evil takes over and self-serving goals obliterate a system of emergency services that will recover from the misguided attempt to decimate them. This time, I pray that good wins. Beware of half the truth. I believe you've gotten a hold of the wrong half. And when trust is broken, I'm sorry means nothing when it's lives involved. And be very careful who you trust. The devil himself was once an angel. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather, I was amiss. For the record, would you just come back to the podium and state your organization that you're representing?
Yes, Julian Cuyamaca, Citizens Committee of 100.
Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Mr. Toller. Your name and the organization you're representing. I got the initials, but I have no idea what they represent.
Well, I'll explain that to you. My name is David Toller. I am the vice chair of the Kumeyaay Degano Land Conservancy. And we do not have an issue with which way the commissioners vote on this, but I do hear the passionate remarks here, and we're very understanding. I know I'm a member of the Sample Squaw Reservation. We have a fire department, and we know all the challenges. We want to encourage both groups to be forthcoming, which they have. We do not have an issue either way, but we do have a legal tie to the property. Ms. Mosler deeded that to us, and there's a couple legal issues, and what we have, I'm going to refer to our attorney, so that is my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. that ends the organized presentations. I'll go forward with the 20-some individual speakers. So we'll start with Philip Grimm, followed by Lynn Jarman, followed by Ben Tolak. And if I messed your name up, I'm so sorry. Philip Grimm, you're on.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate the time. And my name is Philip Grimm. I live in Julian, California. Over the past years, proponents against Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection Districts being absorbed into the San Diego Fire Authorities have divided this community. With those for staying independent and assessing a $200 per parcel fee tax, a tax by any other name is still a tax. In order to remain independent and pay for the services and those to dissolve, and for those who are to dissolve the San Diego and go into San Diego Fire Authority. The issue is that regardless with whichever direction we go, we're still going to have to pay our property tax, which i.e. pays for CAL FIRE. On top of that, we're going to be paying another assessment for the same service, fire protection. And so with this proposal is that the vote is only for the people who live there and who are registered to vote there. The answer to that is, change your vote, change your registration. Not an answer. The people that live up there, also the people who own property but reside somewhere else, they need to have a voice too. And that means the only way that they get a voice is through you all's proposition. So what I'm saying is that we need to go through the LAFCO process, allow everybody to have a say-so. And on a note of, and with that note, because the fact of the matter is, these people will never have a say-so if we go with this, the citizens' agenda that they want to have on this November ballot. On to add to this, on May 2nd, my wife was attacked by a pit bull close by our house. A couple $1,000s later, our dog gets repaired. And she gets repaired by the doctor. The bad thing about it, we're still fighting this, but guess who showed up? It wasn't Julian Cuyamaca Fire Ambulance. It was the CAL FIRE that showed up for her. And they're the ones that went ahead and took care of her while she was been attacked by this pit bull. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next speaker would be Lynn Jarman, followed by Ben Turlock, and then Barbara Nigro.
Good morning, and thank you for listening to our comments. I have more of a question than a comment. I am an attorney licensed to practice in the state of California. I am currently inactive because I've retired, but I did have a comment working off of the comment from the fellow from the Kumeyaay Nation. I notice in the paperwork that you've provided for this hearing, on page 8, item 12 of agenda item 1, agenda report, it says, an apparent disagreement exists involving the ownership status of the land tied to Station 56 and whether it would transfer to CSA number 135 as part of an approved joint organization approval. Based on publicized statements by the Kumeyaay San Diego Land Conservancy, and you heard from a fellow just a moment ago, believes an existing deed clause transfers the land to the organization should it no longer be used by the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District as a fire station. Attempts by the LAFCO staff to meet with the Kumeyaay San Diego Land Conservancy to discuss the matter have not generated a response, and CSA number 135 and through County Council has reviewed the matter, believes the land will transfer to CSA as the successor agency. I have read the deed on this property, and I don't know how many of you have been provided with it. I realize you have a an opinion of some kind from county council. But the deed is very specific in granting this property specifically to the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. It does not speak of a successor to the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. It talks about the district receiving the property from a trust. That property needs to be developed as a fire station, and if it isn't developed as a fire station, or if Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District ceases to use it as a fire station, and I'm reading from the deed, which I encourage you to review again, the ownership of the land will automatically vest in the Native American Land Conservancy or its successor in interest, not the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District successor, but the reversionary interest, which is the Native American Land Conservancy. Any reversion interest will be subject to express agreement. The Native American Land Conservancy or any successor in interest will retain the land as open space. It seems to me by operation of law, if the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District is dissolved, this property will automatically revert by operation of law to the residual beneficiary, which is the Native American Land Conservancy or its successor. That leaves us with, in Julian, if you agree to this proposal to dissolve our station and our fire district with no local fire district and property that you're planning on relying on to sustain a station, thank you. And I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Ben, and then Barbara, and then Tony Harter, and then Karen Kiefer. So if you could line up. Ben.
Hi, my name is Ben Tillich. I'm a longtime resident of Pine Valley. I'm here on a neutral position just to provide some information. I served on the Pine Valley Fire Protection Board for over 30 years until our dissolution back in August of last year, and we became part of CSA 135. One of our main terms and conditions that we asked for, along with rural, was that there be a fire advisory board formed. And the reason for that was that it would give members of the public a mechanism to express concerns or whatever that they had with fire services or as things move forward. That's been formed. I'm also serve on that board. We started beginning of this year and have had numerous meetings. It's worked out well in that it gives the members of the community and the public a mechanism to get their voice heard and onto the Board of Supervisors, but also for the Fire Authority and for CAL FIRE, because they can express their concerns through us to that. We've had numerous meetings. We've seen budgets. We get an update on the response times and things like that from CAL FIRE and so on. But the other thing I wanted to say was that through all of this, we've been through the transition with Pine Valley. Rural's already been through the transition. Things have been nothing but positive. Yes, there were some issues that we needed to resolve, but we were able to work them out through the terms and conditions and other mechanisms. But the feedback I get from the members of the board from Rural and also from Mount Palomar is that everything is going along smoothly. They're happy with the service. We have paramedic engines in fire stations in the backcountry that were never thought we would ever see that. And one of the important things that our board had to look at, and it was a difficult decision, but you have to look past your district and what's good for the public. And the public meaning those that are visiting your district or your town or traveling through it. And when they call 911, they expect somebody that's well-trained and with qualified equipment and that to respond in a timely manner. And that's probably one of the more important things that we looked at in all of that, was just that it's not just about the district, it was about people traveling through. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
My name is Tony Harder. I'm a resident
Would
in
you put the microphone closer to you, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Tony, my minutes are counting. My name is Tony Harder. I'm a landowner and resident, registered voter in Julian. I could speak for 3 hours about why our community is better served by JCFPD, not San Diego County Fire Authority, but I only have 3 minutes. I mailed a letter which was considered, according to your findings. so I'll touch on a few inaccuracies in your report. Several community members opposed dissolution. Over 300 citizens signed our referendum in 3-week period concerning dissolution, which demonstrates support for independence. Board President Shelver said when a vote was made to negotiate with the county that the LAFCO process could take years. How did it get fast-tracked from February board vote to negotiate to a hearing originally scheduled in August? I haven't seen that for any other. Shelver also said the community would vote through LAFCO. A protest is not a vote. When do we vote? There was no LAFCO process. The county's already moved in. The SOPs, Standard Operating Procedure, was rewritten to conform to county. Our equipment has been disabled. Our secretary was given a $40,000 raise, and now her title is Financial Administrator Office, all of which commenced on June 1st, long before this hearing. We have a San Diego County Fire Chief who's doing everything in his power to destroy our fire department in what the board considers an interim period before the community's promised opportunity to vote through this proceeding. And spending has increased for non-essential items, depleting the district's financial reserves in an attempt to create insolvency. The county is already in our district running our fire department. County funding is not sustainable. There's no provision in the county charter to provide for fire services. The funding for California Service Area 135 can change with every budget meeting. It's a line item on your budget. It's not in your charter. Anytime the Board of Supervisors changes, that can change. It's not a guarantee of future service. We have a $200 assessment on the November ballot, the first increase since 1980. We can continue to serve the community with local, professional, volunteer firefighters, more trucks, more staff, special equipment for rural area extraction, four-wheel drive trucks, support vehicles, a full-time fire chief with experience in leadership and familiarity with our dirt and gravel driveways and backcountry roads. We will have 2 new board members in November that will actually support our district. If we remain independent, we will continue to serve with CAL FIRE, the state agency, as the district has done for over 30 years. 2 staff and a truck is not a fire department.
Thank you. Karen Kiefer?
Good morning, afternoon. My name is Karen Kiefer. I work for Julian Fire Protection District on the ambulance, and I am going to be leaving next month, so I have no any future interest in this. The zero staffing that Chief Marinelli submitted into the documentation going to you is very inaccurate. Here's our staffing. The staffing that you see on here are driver operators driving the engine, and you can see we have 4 and 5 people on duty. And this is what we've had about since January. June, we're starting a downward spiral because CAL FIRE is in our station. We have a CAL FIRE chief that has not allowing us to continue to hire, no academies, and we have a battalion chief that refuses to drive the engine. The shed fire, the important thing about that is Jack Shelver said there was no qualified driver on duty. He said many things today that are inaccurate and untrue. We did have a qualified engine driver. Chief Marinelli's first priority is to suppress every fire in your district, and he should have taken the engine, number one, and our other duty officer could have met him on scene. They could have switched out. That's what we did. That's what we've always done, and that's how we take care of our people. Since that time, we have been there recruiting our reserves, and we don't have a issue of staffing at all. We're just not allowed to hire anybody right now because it's just not moving forward because they're shutting us down from inside. Chief Mecham stated that the engine 256, the county engine, does not leave Julian. It left Julian for a Mesa Grande fire. It left Julian for out to Three Sisters. It left Julian the 2 years that it was in our district. The county engines that are paramedic engines move up and cover, and if, for instance, the engine in Julian goes on a call, they'll pull another engine out, so it further strains other areas. They have no coverage. What concerns me the most is the data, too, that he is presenting to you. Everything in red and highlighted in yellow are communities that are not meeting their own time standards, and I'll show the media, and this is their Their data. I pulled it directly off of their data. What concerns me is when the move up and cover engines, they do respond, the county engines do respond to wildland fires. June, whatever it was when the Alpine fire came out, we had 3 fires that day. We had 2 to 7. We had 7 county engines out of 15 county engines gone on the wildland fires. Who's left? Who's left? There's nobody left. Nobody left for those communities. 0 for EMS, structure protection, and traffic collisions. And it disturbs me that Ida Tucker stands up here and says it's frivolous lawsuits.
Thank you. Nancy, almost. Nancy. What?
Didn't you call Barbara?
Oh, yeah, way back when. Barbara.
Okay. I'm Barbara Nigro. I'm a citizen of Julian. I moved to Julian for many reasons. One, for its incredible historical significance, talk much, and its beauty, its nature, its community, its total community. We have each other's backs. And part of that community is JCFPD. They're our neighbors, they're our family, they're our friends. They're our people. They have a vested interest in our community. And from my viewpoint, personally, it was a marriage made in heaven when we had CAL FIRE and JCFPD. They worked together. Imagine that. We worked together. And they'll cross the aisles, whatever. But what happened was we had total coverage. I felt safe. We have houses hidden in the hills all over. We're on back roads. I personally live on miles of driveway that doesn't have a name of a road with 6 houses on it. And we came together to build the fire station. And as Lynn has talked about, this fire station, the land goes back to the Native Americans if it doesn't stay with JCFPD. And imagine our surprise when we got a presentation from CAL FIRE that basically gave us an ultimatum. You will dissolve, you will turn over to CAL FIRE, or we'll leave you. Basically, that's how we all felt. And I felt that that was not only unethical, but not fair. And I have been very involved. I'm a Fireplugs. We have also been maligned. It has split the community. My best friend was personally assaulted at a meeting in the fire station, assault and battery. Yes, she was. And had not one of our firefighters helped her, she would have landed on a person who is wheelchair bound. This is how ugly it has gotten. It's a town that's divided now, and it's gotten very, very ugly. So, ladies and gentlemen of LAFCO, this is the crux of it. There was 1 to 4 against, and the vote kept changing and changing and changing. So who's really going to be protecting of Julian? Who really does have our back? Who has a vested interest? JCFPD, not CAL FIRE. They're an organization that is county, I guess, or state. And it's just crazy that we would do this. So why can't we work together? And the last thing I want to say is that thank you to all the firefighters, the men and women with boots on the ground. No matter who they work for, they're heroes.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break to check the audio feed for the TV news station. So 5 minutes. Harry.
Just glancing at the donuts.
Okay, we are back in session. And I believe I left off with Nancy Kramer would be the next speaker.
Can't think about
Ryan starts with a G. And then Monica Galline. And then Patrick Reitz. Retz, R-E-D-T-Z. So 1, 2, 3. Are the microphones on then? All right,
We just have to speak directly into it.
I am. Okay. First speaker would be Nancy Kramer. Second would be Ryan, and I'm sorry, I can't read your last name. It's G-R-O something. And then the next speaker is Monica Galina. And the fourth speaker would be Patrick Retz, R-E-D-T-Z. So Nancy Kramer, pardon? Okay, she goes to the back of the list. Ryan.
Madam Chair, while they're coming up here, you have 21 speakers, so I think you should limit their comments to 2 minutes each. Otherwise, you're not going to finish by noon. Well, some of us are leaving at noon. You have to come back at 2 o'clock.
By counting with the council, she said we need to stay at the 3 minutes. We've started the ground rules, and I personally don't think it's fair to change the ground rules in the middle, and our council agrees. So we'll. Oh.
I mean, I have a 12:15.
Go ahead. Just come back this afternoon.
And once you start hearing what the person before you or the 6 people before you, once they have said what you had all laid out and had rehearsed, just say, I agree with the previous speakers. Give us your name and whether or not you agree or disagree.
Okay.
Because once I start hearing, and my vice chair is going to poke me when he starts hearing what he's heard before, so that you will be asked to, wrap it up real quick. So
Got it.
there's nothing wrong with saying, I agree, and let's just not repeat and repeat and repeat, okay? So, Ryan.
My name's Ryan Grothy. I've been a reserve for about 6 years in Julian, and
You
got
want
a
to
lot
give
of
us
my
your name for the record? Since
Grothy, Grothe, Grothy. Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've been a reserve for Julian for about 6 years now, and I've got a lot of my training up there, state professional certifications, everything, and I definitely agree with what Karen Kiefer and a lot of the others are saying that are wearing the same blue shirts that I'm wearing. And the biggest thing I have to say about all this stuff that's going on is with all the false documentation, I definitely think that the district attorney and the grand jury should take a look at all this stuff before you guys make a decision, because that'll clear everything up. I mean, if there's criminal intent, the district attorney and the grand jury, they need to look into all this and get down to the bottom of this, because the way I see it, it's basically what Trump is being accused of is there's too much meddling going on here. There's backdoor deals here and stuff that's possibly illegal, and that crap needs to stop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Patrick? Okay, Nancy. Okay, I lost somebody.
You lost, I'm on. I'm Monica Galina. I'm a 14-year resident of Julian. 6 years ago, our 12-year fire chief resigned due to Parkinson's disease. Being chief of a volunteer fire department takes special interpersonal skills to recruit, train, and manage men and women who are paid nothing to risk their lives. For 30 years, Kevin Dubler and before him Larry Hutchinson created, managed, and steadily improved the Julian-Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. When Chief Dubler retired, JCFPD had 2 stations, fully manned and working alongside 2 CAL FIRE stations in the Julian-Cuyamaca District. Board President Jack Shelver hired Fire Chief Rick Marinelli, who had recently retired from the Forest Service. Marinelli had fair administrative skills, but was a poor match for a volunteer fire department. He did not have the interpersonal skills necessary, and he did not like or appreciate any of the volunteers. He could not enlist new volunteers. He slowly depleted the volunteer staff from 30 to 12, and he created a hostile work environment for the volunteers who remained. This is evidenced by a vote of no confidence levied against him and a lawsuit filed by the Volunteer Association. Board President Shelver and Marinelli worked together to plan the dissolution of JCFPD for different reasons. With his history as a city manager, Shelver believes big government can do a better job. Marinelli disliked the volunteer environment, and he believed there was never going to be sufficient revenue to provide services comparable to a city fire department. Over the past 6 years, the JCFPD board repeatedly voted to remain independent. Shelver and Marinelli met often to discuss how to get the board to vote to dissolve. This involved multiple Brown Act violations, which are documented in another lawsuit. Chief Marinelli finally convinced his neighbor, good friend, and board member, Kirsten Starlin, that JCFPD could not be sustained with its current revenue. Board President Shelver convinced Board Member Ada Tucker that JCFPD should pursue further negotiations with the county. In the last year alone, Shelver called for repeated votes trying to get the outcome he wanted, the dissolution of JCFPD. Finally, after repeated votes that were illegally asking the same question, the pressure was successful and the board voted 3-2 to give up the independence. 3 members of the JCFP board, Shelver, Starlin, and Tucker, voted to reopen negotiations with the county. They did not vote to dissolve. As soon as the negotiations were approved, Shelver and Marinelli began meeting with Chief Mecham without informing the other 2 members of the fire board, who were adamantly opposed to dissolution. I have more, but I'm running out of time. Thank you for listening.
Patrick Ritz.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commission members. My name is Patrick Reitz. I am the Fire Chief for the Ida Wildfire Protection District, which is not in your county. We are up to the north in Riverside County. You may have heard of us recently from the Cranston Fire. I'm a 31-year fire service member. I have 20 years in the fire chief seat, not battalion chief, not division chief, not assistant chief, fire chief. The answer here is not big government, as has been asserted by going to county. It's local government. It's special districts and JPA. Everywhere else but California, special districts and JPAs are on the grow, and for good reason, for local control, for local accountability to the voters, the taxpayers, and the residents. Your local board with Julian is in question. I've heard the numbers. We're bankrupt, we're not bankrupt, doesn't really matter. There's some accountability there. There's some question with the fire chief, whether or not he actually did his job. But I can assure you that Ida Wildfire, we haven't raised our taxes since 1980. We've had no increase, yet I have revenue, and we're growing. It's a business plan. It's doing it right. And we're an ISO 2, and our staffing levels are higher than what you're going to be receiving with the CAL FIRE model. We do meet NFPA standard. CAL FIRE does not. We put 4 people on an engine. The current model for CAL FIRE, and this is not to besmirch the men and women who are the responders, the business plan doesn't work. It's not sustainable. Look at Riverside County. We will be bankrupt. We're very close to it now. The costs are not sustainable. The level of service you're getting doesn't even meet NFPA standard. If you want to create a legacy, the legacy is with special districts. The legacy is with JPAs and cooperative agreements. The legacy is going to a true county fire department. I would also call into question that you have a contractor that did your assessment. I read it. It was online. And whether it was a legitimate assessment or not, it has to be called into question, because you're having your contractor, which CAL FIRE is, write an assessment on a department that they're about to take over. They benefit from this. And again, this is not to besmirch the men and women responders for CAL FIRE. We work alongside of them. But my experience with CAL FIRE has not been what's being portrayed here, and I can assure you that. Thank you.
Nancy Kramer.
Good afternoon, and thank you for listening to our concerns. Most of what I was going to address has already been addressed by other people, so I'll spare you that. But when Tony Mecham made his
Do you
presentation
want to give us your name for the record,
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry, Nancy Kramer. When Tony Mecham made his presentation in July of 2017 on the benefits of CAL FIRE SDCFA to our community, I left thinking it was a great idea. But after studying it more carefully and talking to other communities contracted by SDCFA, I realized that although the concept certainly seemed good, it was not a plan that was actually working in the backcountry. And it most certainly was not a plan that would assure the safety of our community. Living so far away from other agencies that can help us, we need to make sure we have all the firefighters we can. We need CAL FIRE to team up with JCFPD and not be replaced by them. With all the fires in California, why, we ask, would you want to reduce the number of firefighters and fire equipment in our community? Why not work together as in the last 30 years? We have worked together well in the last 30 years. I don't see why that has to change. It was my understanding that LAFCO was a neutral, unbiased agency tasked with looking out for the public's best interest. But when we were attempting to stop the opposition from taking over our fire station with a referendum, before the dissolution had ever begun, it was the LAFCO attorney who argued against us. Perhaps you can explain the impartiality of that to me. I'm pleading with you to do your fiduciary duty to look into all these allegations. We have some very bright and intelligent people that have done a lot of great research. I'm guessing you have only heard one side of the story up to this point. Once our fire department is dissolved and our equipment and station is gone, there's no going back. The communities of Ranchita, Palomar Mountain, Shelter Valley, Intermountain, Boulevard are very dissatisfied with the SDCFA. And they say that they are not getting what they were promised. This is my greatest fear. They're not getting what's promised today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker's William Everett, Jacqueline Egan-Berry, Lori Foss, Leslie McClelland.
Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. My name is William Everett. I'm a native San Diegan, and I've lived in Julian since 2002. In 2003, Cedar Fire, I lost my home while I was a volunteer firefighter working to save other people's homes in the community. After helping fight the Cedar Fire in Ramona for several days, our crew returned to Julian as the wind had shifted and was now headed east. When we returned, CAL FIRE was nowhere to be found. As we've seen recently, when massive wildfires break out, firefighting resources are spread very thin. In our case, Julian was written off for several days because higher density residential areas were threatened closer to San Diego, and there were simply not enough resources to go around. For 3 days, the Julian Cuyamaca volunteer firefighters fought around the clock and saved many, many homes. As the dissolution process has moved forward, no one in CAL FIRE or in the County Fire Authority could provide an absolute guarantee that Julian would never be abandoned again. Only an independent fire protection district can make such a promise. Sadly, in the last few years, several CAL FIRE engines dispatched to medical calls in Julian have been unable to find the location of the call. In one case, a call coming from Camp Marston, one of the best-known landmarks in the community. Technology may help with that problem, but it will never replace local knowledge. The Julian volunteers want to work with CAL FIRE, as it has successfully done for more than 30 years. So what is in the best interest of the community? Replacing up to 50 trained and experienced local firefighters with a CAL FIRE engine staffed with only 3 firefighters? As was mentioned earlier, litigation is still in progress on this matter, as is an investigation by the California Public Employee Relations Board into questionable actions taken by the former fire chief and current board president. In summary, nothing in a democracy is more sacred than the right of self-determination. The citizens of Julian want that right, and in November, they will exercise that right. I hope that in your actions today, you will not take that right away from the good people of Julian. The county has waited 10 years in hopes Julian would join the County Fire Authority. Waiting another 2 months and allowing the people to cast their votes does not seem to be too much to ask for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jacqueline?
Hello. Hello, my name is Jacqueline Egan Berry, and I just want to tell you just a couple of things. First of all, Jack Shelver does not live in Julian. He shouldn't be representing us because he's not one of us. Number two is Kirsten Starlin is constantly wearing the uniform of the volunteers, but she doesn't support us. And that is upsetting to a lot of us out there. I also wanted to tell you that I personally witnessed CAL FIRE leaving the area on May 7th to help Ramona. And I followed that engine all the way to Ramona, and that engine left Julian uncovered. We had no coverage on May 7th because they were assisting Ramona. This is not going to be adequate coverage. This is a joke. Also, I don't understand why Diane Jacobs is on both boards.
Let's stay with the facts, please.
I think Diane Jacobs
Let's
should
stay.
recuse herself.
Let's stay
That's
with the
fact.
facts.
Thank you.
Lori?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling very well today. My name is Lori Foss, and I'm here to, I do have a disability, so I'm going to try to stay on task here. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Is that better? Okay. Okay, now first of all, with a BLS program, the state can remove it. It's not about the county. The state can remove any of our, Mr. Mecham was right. The county may not remove the engines from Julian, but the state surely can because it's a BLS engine. Now, as far as the roads and the time that he said he was able to respond on our roads, he has not taken into account that we are a mountain area. We have rain and snow and ice and fog. I cannot make it to the high school in less than 8 minutes from Pine Hills to Julian, and that's breaking some speed records and also probably some speed laws to get my daughter to school on time. Now, as far as the Santa Isabel fire, the shed fire, Chief Marinelli was responsible for staffing that station. Chief Marinelli was responsible for getting that engine there. It was blamed on the volunteers. They had no authority whatsoever to control that situation. Excuse me. And they're being blamed for it. The chief is responsible. And that was Chief Marinelli. And also, we have a 2-in, 2-out OSHA regulation, and there's a reason for it. 2 on the inside can get the 2 on the outside, or 2 on the outside can get the 2 on the inside in. And they're offering 3 in Julian. Now, the most important thing is they said this would never happen in San Diego County where there would be only 2. There's a medic patrol in Palomar right now that has only 2 persons. The life expectancy, and I will hurry, the life expectancy for that, for 17, you have to reach it by 17.3 minutes or less with at least 4 persons. Life expectancy from CAL FIRE's own report is to contain all unwanted fires to the building of origin. Rapid, uncontrolled spread of fires throughout the building is highly likely. Victim survivability, not likely. Search and rescue efforts are not anticipated to be successful. Difficulty achieving adequate water supply for building of origin and exposures, not successful. Adjacent exposures will suffer damage. Buildings, critical infrastructures, and environmental damages will likely suffer extreme damages or be destroyed. EMS may have delay in assembling sufficient staffing. to effectively initiate BLS, basic life support, or ALS, advanced life support care, and rapidly accomplish time to task. EMS interventions will not be capable of initiating resuscitative measures prior to irreversible brain damage, may experience increases of firefighter injuries while assessing and treating, removing the injured or ill. Now, that's one thing. Now, I know I have another minute. I'm sorry. Okay, the mission statement for CAL FIRE is wildland fire. We want them in Julian. We need them. But we also need our JCFPD volunteers. Their mission statement is auto accidents, medical, and structure fire, and they are experts at them. Each one is an expert at what they do. We need both to survive. And let's see. Oh, in 2003, we're talking about the Cedar Fire. CAL FIRE Incident Command ordered the backfire be set in Harrison Park, which was not necessary. The person who set the backfire was found responsible and negligent, but could not be prosecuted. In those 150 homes that burned, one of them was mine. And to go even further, there was a rogue pair of CAL FIRE CDF firefighters who lit a backfire in Wainola, and that backfire, they didn't check, they don't know our terrain, they don't know our area. Even the county has our streets marked wrong, so there's no way that any GPS of theirs would ever work. But they lit a backfire that killed firefighter from Novato, Stephen Rucker. And they did not check, the other was badly burned. They did not check, they did not have communication, yet they lit a backfire. Now this kind of thing, with them not knowing our terrain, is a dangerous proposition. Not enough firefighters on the engine, not enough, too long of a response time, 20 minutes in the contract. Now, 17 minutes, you're going to have irreversible brain damage.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay. Leslie McClellan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leslie McClelland, and I'm a resident of Julian, have been for a little over 3 years, and also used to work in the public safety group for the county. So I can see this issue from two sides, but I do have some concerns. One of them, I am concerned that the funding for the fire authority comes out of the public safety group. Having worked in the public safety group, I understand how people grovel for whatever general fund there is available to fund agencies. Fire safety is not in the county charter. It leaves me and some others to be somewhat concerned about sustainability over time. Secondly, I really have trouble with a one-size-fits-all approach. I understand it's working great for Pine Valley. I understand that it seems to be working great because I have friends that live on Palomar Mountain. It didn't work that great in San Miguel Fire District because they reverted back to being independent. For some areas, it works great. For some, it does not. For Julian, it may not be the case that the best option is to have one fire department being San Diego County Fire. I'm not going to repeat what people have said. We loved the partnership. I think there are a lot of legal issues pending that have not been answered. And I know that you all want to see a win-win for the county, for all of you, for the people in Julian, the people of San Diego County. My suggestion is that you direct staff to go back and come up with some kind of a compromise which lets JCFPD retain its independent as a separate district and go back and partner, or even try San Diego County Fire, CAL FIRE doing all of it. But if we retain JCFPD as an entity, if it doesn't work, then it can revert back and we can try to restore Julian's independent fire status. So for me, I'd say let's find a compromise, let's find a win-win, let's protect what we have and do the best for everybody in Julian and the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next speakers will be Nick, looks like Kettleson, followed by Debbie Kettleson, Thayer, Bear, and Ten Griswold. And remember, please do not repeat what others have said. I understand your concern and what happened with Chief Marinelli, and I don't think that those comments need to be repeated each time. So let's move on with new information, please. Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick Kettleson, longtime Julian resident. I now live in Ranchita. I'm speaking today as a community that's already experiencing the lack of CAL FIRE service. Our fire station was taken over several years back. Since then, we struggle to get coverage. Last month, we had 6 days. Can you imagine the feeling standing there knowing that if your daughter
Okay,
If
speak
you're
to the commission, please.
If your daughter has an issue, you're not going to get service? It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. We have been promised coverage for years from CAL FIRE. 6 days. How can you take over more stations when you can't staff the stations that you have? Can anyone answer that question? I don't think you can. These two areas relate, Julian, Ranchita, because you're trying to do the same thing. Our overlap comes from Warner Springs. The responding station is nearly 30 minutes uphill. The critical response time in a situation like this is an hour. We lose half of that before you guys have even responded if we are not staffed. Our wind speed averages 11.6 miles per hour. We are one of the windiest areas in the county. If the average is 11.6 miles per hour and a fire breaks out, how big is that fire before someone is even on scene if we are not staffed? That's 5 miles. Think about it. CAL FIRE's mission statement is to protect San Diego's waterways. The watersheds, to be specific. Ranchita is one of San Diego's biggest watersheds, backed up to Borrego Springs, which is the biggest aquifer in Southern California. What are they doing to protect it when a fire breaks out, spreads 5 miles in less than an hour, and goes right into that watershed? You need to fix the issues you have before you take on new issues. Volunteers are still not allowed to cover their home stations. This is proven by Ranchita. We have CAL FIRE volunteers in Ranchita that cannot cover the Ranchita station. They are mandated by CAL FIRE and sent to opposite stations when they would prefer to work our station. This is a #1 reason why we lose coverage. You ask CAL FIRE what the issue is here, they say it's a state issue. They say it's a county issue. They point the finger. They never solve the problem. I thank you for your time. Please fix the problems before you create bigger bureaucracies of them.
Thank you. Debbie?
Speak into that and tell them your name, okay? Go ahead. I'm getting out my paper. Hi, my name is Devi, and I live in Ranchita right now, but I used to live in Julian. I'm speaking because my station is not staffed all the time. My grandma and grandpa live in Ranchita, and they're old. What if something happened? They have a farm. They have animals. If something happened to their farm or them, it would be the worst day of my life. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thayer? Thayer?
Good morning, folks. My name is Thayer Bream. I'm a resident of Julian. Everything that most of everybody has already said, so they've kind of taken my thunder, but that's okay. I agree with everybody here. One of the things with Julian, it's been surviving for 34 years upon its own and its own capabilities, and that's of its own right. They're talking about the increase in fire volume and fire behaviors and stuff like that are increasing, and to lose over as I've been stating, 400 firefighters, volunteer or not, is kind of a threat to us as an entity up there on top of that mountain. CAL FIRE's a great service. They do their job, and we pay our taxes to have them do their job. We pay our state taxes to have them do, that's their job, okay? Our right as Julian citizens up there in that small community have a legal right to have our own insurance, as it were, and to have our own fees collected and to pay for our own fire department and protect ourselves as an entity through its own financial burdens. The National Guard, I've got friends and family that are in the military, and they get dispatched and get sent around just like CAL FIRE gets sent around, get this, they go here, they go there to protect us. National Guard never leaves. They stay. They stay in that town, they stay in that community, and when the other people come home, they thank the National Guard for being there and protecting them, because they never leave. Now, Julian Cuyamaca Fire is very special in that way. Their sited and responsibilities wholly resemble Julian Cuyamaca area. That is their home, that's their turf, it's their place to reside. They have an invested interest in that. CAL FIRE does too, but they have it basically because they love what they do. They are paid to be a protector and a provider of services. But Julian Cuyamaca volunteers and their reserves are there to protect, and they're not going to leave. We don't have the opportunity to have somebody leave and not know the area, not know the districts. So in my position, I'm going to ask and look at all you guys because I've got your attention apparently. Let us go to a vote and let us be our own provider. We have the right to afford our own insurance, i.e. Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection, to protect us. Let us do our due diligence and let us do that. We're fine and safe with money. Money has never been an issue to protect us. It's just what it's an entity that survives on its own. So let's work together. Let's have a happy family. Let's work everything together because CAL FIRE is going to be there one way or another. They've already got 2 stations there now. Why do they need 3? They don't. They can be our Army. They can be our Marines. They can be our Air Force and Navy. Let them go do their separate jobs. But for God's sakes, please, let us maintain and protect ourselves with our own funded and established fire department. I appreciate all your guys' time, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. 10 Griswold?
10.
Okay, after that it'll be Don Rowan, Ray Sprott, Ken, I don't know, RICL maybe? Is there a Ken in the house? 1681, old something, Surrey? Okay, and then Constance.
Okay.
Ken, you're on.
My name's Ted Griswold. I'm here on behalf of the Kumeyaay Land Conservancy and the Native American Land Conservancy. So now you get to hear the story about what's going on with that group and the property. Before I do so, I want to point out that both conservancies are neutral on this decision regarding whether or not the district is dissolved and issues go to the county. However, the ramifications really have a lot to do with the conservancies, and I wanted to go into that with you. Also wanted to correct the record on a couple of things. Your footnote 12 that somebody was citing to earlier indicated that the Kumeyaay Land Conservancy hadn't met with the county or the fire district on this, and that's not true. Actually, just about a month ago, we had sat down with county council and the fire district to let them know about these issues. We have not come to resolution on that, but we have met and discussed. In addition, I'd like to correct the fire chief's submission that the property where Fire Station 56 would transfer directly to the county. That's not the case. In the dissolution, it would not go directly to the county. As a matter of fact, the deed itself would be terminated. And let me explain to you the story behind all that. The way the district got this property was through the Francis Moeller Trust. It was bequeathed as an inheritance, and that trust was interpreted by a court of law and ultimately turned into the deed itself. The trust, the court, and the deed all said one thing, that the fire district, not successors and assigns, but the fire district could have that property so long as they, 1, built a fire station within 3 years, and 2, never abandoned that fire station. And if they did, that property would go immediately to the Native American Land Conservancy or its assigns, And Kumeyaay Land Conservancy and Native American Land Conservancy worked together, and KDLC was going to be the assignee of that property interest. As a result, what happens if they dissolve? It's abandonment of the fire station. So what would happen is the original grantor who kept this tie onto the property with this condition, that condition will have failed. They would have breached the deed, and the property would go back to the trust. The trust would then be under the fiduciary duty to transfer that land according to the trust and the court order, which would be going to NALC. So if you approve the dissolution, there's no issue. I mean, if you don't approve the dissolution, there's no issue. If you do approve the dissolution, there needs to be a negotiation between NALC, KDLC, and the county about how you're going to use that fire station, because there is no agreement to that effect right now. And that's what we came into the fire district to talk about, is how can we work this out so that you can continue to have fire coverage. But it's not going to happen automatically, and I strongly encourage the fire district to come and talk to the conservancies if that's something you want to work out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don.
Yes, my name is Don Rowan. I'm the board president of the Montezuma Valley Volunteer Fire Department, 501c3. We're out in Ranchita. Basically, I just want to touch a couple of things really quick. We became part of the San Diego County Fire Authority about 10 years ago. The county promised us that they would cover our station 24/7, 365. In June of this year, our station was covered 7 days out of 30. In July, it was covered 17 days out of 31. That's less than 50% of the time. Okay, we have a small community, granted, and we're out in the boonies. CAL FIRE has told us that they want the local volunteers in Julian, wherever. Well, it didn't work out in Palomar Mountain, Sunshine Summit, Julian, Shelter Valley, or Ranchita. All of our local volunteers are no longer involved in the fire department at all because of the requirements and so forth, and training and physical fitness and all of that. Basically, my question again to the board is, if you can't keep the stations that you have staffed now, how are you going to be able to take over Julian and keep them staffed?
Thank you. Ray.
Hello, my name's Ray Sprout. I was assistant chief in the Ranchita Fire Department. I've been life flighted 11 times from bee bites, and not having full mask at the Ranchita Fire Department endangered my life and my people in my town. And I think something should be done with Julian staff and all fire departments so they can save people's life like mine. I don't have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Constance Schmidt-Newgard, and I've lived out in San Diego County backcountry since 1989. I've been through 2 evacuations, one the Cedar Fire in 2003, 2007 the Witch Creek, and I was up in Julian, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I was in charge of our family's planning to evacuate, and the first thing I learned to do was to breathe. And you just don't know how important that planning, that pre-planning is. I haven't heard anybody talk about how important and how much people need to get in their heads. You are ultimately responsible for your own safety, for your family's safety, and for your property. We pay taxes, we pay a lot of insurance. My insurance has doubled this year alone, and it's to do with the fires up north, okay? So there's 3 things that are really, really bothering me and alarming me, like a fire. 1, paramedic, if you're pregnant, you have a bug out 3 bags. The before the hospital, during the hospital, and after you have the baby. You have your bug out bag ready, prepared. 2, when you have a fire, you have your bug out bags for every kid, for every adult, for every animal. And you just have a plan. And if you freak out easily, you practice that drill over and over and over again with your community. It's very important. We've been doing that in Julian. I thank Heather Rull to the max. I thank the other neighbors I have to the max, because I've been alone with kids and animals, taking them out by myself, or at least till my husband was able to match up with me. So the third alarm I'm hearing, very important. We are a country of laws. There are laws that might have a cloud on them right now. I'm hearing one, the fire department land, the fire station is built on land with real estate laws applying to that. That's private property laws. That's holy ground. The second is the holy ground of democracy. Put it in writing. Everybody's been talking. Put it in writing. Put it in front of the voters, and we can vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken? And then Allison, James Weismer, and Stephen Austin.
Ken Rice, I was still on the list there.
I'm sorry, what?
My name is Ken Rice. I was still on the list. Hi. Hello.
Okay.
My name is Ken Rice. My time's already started. Could you restart it? Thank you.
Go.
My name is Ken Rice. I'm a longtime county volunteer. Started with Duluth in 2007, shortly after the evacuations in Fallbrook. I want to thank all of you, starting with Mr. Bill Horn and Diane Jacobs, and for the millions of dollars you provided us for great equipment. I want to thank you for that. The communications that you provided, the $15 million a year that you started out with giving us, bought us some great fire engines, went to good use. That is the current budget for Fallbrook to staff four stations. We serve your entire back county for $15 million a year. I gave you my time for free so that you could provide us with all that great equipment. I have wholeheartedly taken every single class and gotten every single certification and qualification to be an officer in charge to operate every single piece of equipment. And I can tell you that if this plan goes through and Julian gets a three-person engine with a water tender, there's no one to drive the water tender. So there's another big pile of money sitting there. I currently have done multiple shifts. I've been an officer at Palomar Mountain for several years. I can tell you that being up there with a two-man ALS unit is great, but there's no one to life flight out my patient for me. There's no one to help me if I have more than two patients. You'd be tying my hands if I was in charge of the Palomar station. I currently live next door to the San Pasqual station that has a two-person medical patrol, whatever. We've had 4 fires this last year, and along the highway, and that two-person patrol cannot stop one single fire along our highway. We're bringing in DC-10s to stop fires that should have been stopped at the roadway. I'm glad they're coming there. I love you, CAL FIRE, for that. I love what CAL FIRE brings to the table, but where I live, I'm afraid to go to work during a red flag event. I've got 7 kids up on the mountain with us, my wife, the animals. I live on a road that no fire engine will even come up there to check on us. And you're letting us down. You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And I really would ask that you would table this and reconsider what you're doing to the beautiful town of Julian. I've seen what you've done at Palomar, Intermountain, San Pasqual, and you really need to reconsider what you're doing to the community. I have paid the price to help keep this current system that you're going. I've put in so many days in classes away from my family to help you do this, and I continue to want to help you do this, but you're making a big mistake.
Thank you. Allison.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name's Allison Shank. I'm an 18-year resident. I'd like to discuss the town of Bangor, California. Bangor, not unlike Julian, sits at the crossroads of 2 highways. It's a historic community nestled in the backwoods of Butte County, And like most small towns across the county, Bangor for years had and enjoyed a volunteer fire department. That is until Butte County, in conjunction with CAL FIRE, started taking over and eliminating all volunteer fire departments within the county. Sound familiar? And like San Diego County, this process of elimination in Butte County took several years to complete. Remember, the process in this county started in 2008, and it's nearing its completion. To date, San Diego County has lost over 400 volunteer firefighters since the inception of SDCFA in 2008. So back to Bangor. Their once volunteer fire station became a county station staffed by, you guessed it, contracted CAL FIRE firefighters. On the night of October 9th, 2017, at 9:38 p.m., a wildfire broke out in Bangor. It was reported to the CAL FIRE Dispatch Center immediately. The trouble was, hours before that very evening, a wildfire broke out in adjoining Yuba County, and all resources were sent there, including the engine assigned to Bangor. County and CAL FIRE resources were spread so thin due to several wildfires that were burning all over the state that Bangor, a low population community, was left uncovered. In fact, by the time a resource was made available and arrived in Bangor, an hour and a half since the initial 911 call reporting the fire, 3/4 of their downtown business district and over 74 homes were on fire or had burnt to the ground. Talk to residents of Bangor today, and they'll tell you they wish they had never allowed the county to eliminate their volunteer fire department. They're convinced if they still had a voluntary force, this fire would have been contained and extinguished before it ravaged their community to ashes. They wish they still had their volunteer firefighters, their home line of defense. I implore you to consider this. Based on the previous information, the fire-prone communities of Julian and Cuyamaca, and the global changes that are affecting fires and fire behavior, fires are more frequent, bigger, and more damaging than ever. In the times we find ourselves in need, we need all the firefighters we can get. So please do not allow the dissolution of JCFPD. Don't allow the loss of any more firefighters in this county. We need all of them. You need all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. James? James or Stephen?
Hi, thank you. My name is Jim Wismer. I've been a part-time landowner at Julian since about 1972. First time I came through Julian was 1967 with the Fullerton Police Department on a motorcycle test ride. I thought, I love this little town. Someday I'll get a place here. So I got my land in 72, built a cabin in 74. A kid next door set it on fire in 75. Julian Fire did a great job. Those guys from Cuyamaca were out there like that. They got it handled. Didn't lose that cabin on a mountaintop in the middle of nowhere. So I can't say enough about how good they are, or at least were at that time. Then I have CAL FIRE experience. Also used to own a home in Palm Desert Falls in Palm Desert at a country club there. And a neighbor had just moved out. Somebody was working on that house, and the address was 101 Trento Circle. I call the fire department, say, come on out. Palm Desert gets right there. Then they say, we're going to wait for another truck. CAL FIRE shows up. They don't want to work together. Some kind of discussion. Don't want to work with CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE doesn't want to work with them. So the place continues to burn. I have pictures of it here, all fixed up finally. My wife and I went by there the other day. But until the second Palm Desert fire truck showed up, nothing happened. And it looks to me like CAL FIRE doesn't always play well with others. And it's just an issue, that's all. And that's the main crux of the matter. If you put all your eggs in the CAL FIRE basket, we may break some eggs. I just can't even imagine doing away with the guys that are there. What little help they may, or great help they may be, I don't know. But you just can't go blowing out the people that live here, that know the roads, all these little tiny dirt roads and all up here. I don't know where these CAL FIRE guys come from. Maybe they'll come from down in Calamasa, because Calamasa did away with Cal Fire Department, so they've got some guys probably looking for work down there. Maybe they're shifting the Calamasa people up here. My main concern is the money. It's about the money. I ran some copies on the computer a couple of days ago, and Cal Fire runs a horrendous budget deficit year after year after year. When I would lose money in my business, the accountant Escondido would call me, say, you better come down here for come to Jesus meeting. We got problems. You know, I'm going to get you some religion on the budget here. Well, they've got budget problem at Cal Fire. I can give you pictures of houses that didn't burn up or were fixed. This is a budget. You guys ought to take a look at this.
Thank you, James. Your time is up.
Okay, look at the budget.
Thank you. Is Stephen Austin still here? Is Stephen Austin? Seeing no Stephen Austin, we are at the end of public speaking, so I am going to close the public portion of the meeting and refer to what?
Sorry, I signed up to speak. I would like to speak. Evelina Hatch.
I went through the list. What was your name?
Evelina Hatch.
Oh, that was way back when. Okay, Evelina, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Evelina Hatch. I may be the youngest one here, but I've spent the last 6 years of my life learning everything I can about the fire service, emergency coverage, funding, staffing options, and local politics. And the best part, how to locally protect my community that has, well, considering the complicated demographics that make up the Julian and Cuyamaca area. I know this emergency service issue inside and out. This issue means so much to me because I plan to stay in Julian. This decision made in this chamber will affect the community of Julian and Cuyamaca for generations. Future generations have the most at stake here. We have to live with the permanent decision that is made here. The contract that our board signed with SCCFA has no option to leave. It's a permanent decision. It's interesting to me that SCCFA wants to cover our district so badly that they're willing to create and spread propaganda, move into our station, bash our community members, and allow their CAL FIRE employees to publicly make statements that make us want to second guess what they're saying. One CAL FIRE employee on Facebook once said that a single wide that burned in Shelter Valley didn't mean anything. He also said that we have...
Excuse me, let's stay with the facts, please.
Yeah, ma'am, the thing is, the comments that CAL FIRE employees are making on Facebook are causing us to second guess what their chief is telling us. He's telling us to cover us, but this CAL FIRE employee tells me he's going to drive slow when he responds to a fire. That is a serious issue that we need to consider. It is important for many of us that the district remains independent and with a board of directors so that unlike the 19 other districts, we have a way to hold SCCFA accountable. An advisory committee is an advisory committee. It can only advise. We want to have control of what's happening in our district. Dissolution is not the only option, but is the only option that Jack Shelver, Supervisor Jacob, Chief Tony Mecham, and LAFCO is considering. Please allow JCFPD to remain independent. Enough communities have been damaged and negatively impacted by the faulty plans in SCCFA. There are about 14 engines covering 1.5 million acres of San Diego. That is not proper coverage. That's a 30-minute response time. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, we have a number of speaker slips that did not want to speak, but registered their opposition. So we had 15 slips opposing the dissolution, and we had 6 in favor. and those will go into the record along with all of the other correspondence that we've received over the last couple months. So at this time, the public hearing is closed. Supervisor Jacob? Commissioner Jacob?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to thank all that have taken the time to come down and speak. There's been a lot of allegations and personal attacks, and I think that's very, very unfortunate. Representing the community of Julian for a couple of decades at least, this is a great community, and it really concerns me deeply to see the personal issues that have evolved as a result of this particular issue. I know full well that we can have disagreements, but we don't have to be disagreeable with each other, and I hope one way or another that when this issue is ultimately resolved, that neighbors will again be neighbors, and friends who were once friends will become friends again. Having said that, a lot of issues have been talked about local control. Just so you folks know, I've always been a big advocate of local control. I served on a school board in Hamul for 17 years, a very small school district. The state tried to take us over several times, and we stood firm in standing up for our small district as long as we could financially sustain ourselves, which we could, not just for the moment, but for the future. So I applaud those who want to retain that local control. I don't know where the entire community is on this issue. Whether the community supports this recommendation that's before us today or not. I mean, we're hearing from an opposition group, unlike what the LAFCO Commission heard with when we dissolved the Rural Fire Protection District, which was the largest, and then Pine Valley, and we've heard Ben Tulloch talk about that at the point. I mean, there was unanimity by the board and by the community on those dissolutions. This is a little bit different. And the volunteer firefighters, both in Julian and throughout our backcountry, over the years, and I go back to the Laguna Fire in 1970, so I remember what our backcountry was, and much of it was not covered by any fire agency, and the county let loose and said, do nothing, form a fire district, or become volunteers. The volunteer departments in many parts of the county have not been sustainable. And with the county stepping up, and it's all credit to all members of the Board of Supervisors, we've invested over $400 million to date in improving the fire protection and emergency medical services. CAL FIRE is not going to leave the area. CAL FIRE's primary responsibility is for wildland fire protection. What we're talking about here today is structural fire protection and emergency medical services. And let us not forget, although the fires make the big news, it's those medical emergencies. It's those 911 calls when you expect a very fast response time to respond to a heart attack or whatever it is, because we're talking about saving lives and property, which is nothing more important. We have 4,100 residents in the area, 2,300 registered voters, as I understand, Keene, that you mentioned earlier. Julian is a little bit unique because we have a lot of absentee property owners. They don't live there full time. And after this issue broke out in the community, I heard from a lot of property owners that don't live in Julian that had grave concerns about not having a sustainable fire and emergency services available to them. Can you mention timing? Who knows what the right time is in order to do this? I do know this, that this does need to go to a vote of the people and go to a vote of the property owners. Now, wait a minute. The only way we get there is by approving the staff recommendation, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So in order for us to get this before the people and to give the registered voters and the property owners a chance to have their voices heard, which I've heard many times here, you want that to be done, is to go forward with the staff recommendation, and then there would be the protest hearing, and then voices would be heard on this issue. There's been a lot of allegations and a lot of what I know is misinformation. I don't know if we want to take any more time, though, to allow some of that to be cleared up. I think it will in the future. One other important issue, I think, to note, that on the ballot, and I know when I talked to Ben Tulloch and people at Rural, they said, yes, but the County Fire Authority is not in the county charter. And I said, well, it's in the Public Safety Group. County Fire Authority stands right alongside with the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney, Probation, and the rest of public safety services. And the Board of Supervisors is not going to do away with it. But we're going one further. In November, this November, on the ballot is Measure A. There are some cleanup items, and one of those will put the San Diego County Fire Authority into the county charter if the voters approve it. So, Ben, if you're still here, we were listening to you and others that wanted that assurance that the County Fire Authority will become a formal part of county government under the county charter, but voters must approve Measure A to do that. I know the community has looked at this proposal, all aspects of it, and we've got some a great community that I think needs to have a voice. The Station 56 issue needs to be resolved. Is that a condition?
It's not a condition, and I can have council speak to that, but in fact.
Please.
Right, it's currently not a condition. We have taken a look at the deed and the prior court order. We have a different interpretation than what you've heard at public comment, and we believe that provided it remains used as a fire station to serve the community, that the restriction is on the use and not on the owner.
So are you saying that we do not need to put that as a condition? Are you going to continue to discuss this issue, or?
My understanding is that the county is actually willing and to continue to discuss it with the tribal organizations that are interested in possibly having a reverter. I don't know whether they will be able to achieve a resolution informally on that, and there may be some legal action that is taken, but I don't believe that is a post-approval issue that I don't believe it necessarily needs to be subject to any conditions.
Thank you for that. I also, Chief Mecham, there are people here from Ranchita, and I'm concerned about some of the testimony. You don't need to respond now, but I'd like to make sure that the issues that have been raised here at the hearing about some of the concerns and the coverage at Ranchita are addressed. So I think the best thing for us to do today to get the voice of the community heard and the people in this area is to move forward. I strongly think the community in this case should have the chance to review the proposal that's before the commission today, know the facts, cut through the emotion, but stick to the facts and have a complete and robust, shall we say, debate over the issue, and hopefully a kindly debate and not get personal as I have experienced in the past. We're talking about a county fire authority that now includes 1.5 million acres. And if I read it correctly, Herman, our budget right now is about 40 million annually. That's the operating budget, not the capital budget. We've come a long way, and I know Andy chaired the commission during the days when we put together the model for paid firefighting along with volunteers and reserves, and it's a blend. And the county contracts with CAL FIRE, which means through our contract, we tell CAL FIRE what to do. They don't tell us what to do through that contract. And that's a big difference, and we have a lot of control over that. So this is not about, to me, about jurisdictional lines, patches on the sleeve. I think in the end, what our public expects, whatever patch is on the sleeve of a first responder, is when that 911 call comes in, that they get the fastest response possible to that emergency, whether it's medical or fire. We've heard testimony from the chief, we've heard testimony from our own LAFCO staff that that would be the case if this goes through. No doubt that will be debated in the community. To me, it's about efficiency, it's about effectively fighting fires, improving the cost structure, cost savings, not just for the communities of Julian and Cuyamaca, but for the region as a whole. Frankly, I support the Fire Board's decision. I know it's been very tough for those who are here today that took the time to come down and stand up and be counted and stick to what you believe is in the best interest of the community, not yourselves. And I respect that very, very much. So with that, I'm going to put a motion on the floor to move the staff recommendation.
I'll second the motion. I'd like to make a few comments. I've been on the County Board of Supervisors for the last 24 years. I've sat and watched 27 major fires in the county of San Diego. If you go, what? I think my mic's on. Yeah, my mic's on. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay. I've watched 27 major fires. The fires in 97 and 99, we did not have the equipment to even attack the fires we had in Fallbrook. We had to have 5 helicopters show up from Los Angeles to help us attack those fires. Over the 20-some-odd years that we've been here, Diane and I and the other members of the board have pushed for an air attack force that we could address in this county. We have a very large county, and I think this is all about public safety. Now, I understand, and when I first went ahead with this years ago, I had a lot of volunteer departments. In fact, when the volunteers became part of the county, many of them could not pass the physical, and that was a big issue. But I think we're a lot better off today than we were then. And I think the more that we can get folks into this operation, the better. I know there are flaws different places. I know there are budget issues different places. But given the size of this county and the 3.4 million people who live here, I think we're better off with a county operation that is coordinated. Now, when we signed the Amador contract years ago, that brought CAL FIRE into San Diego County and opened up our stations for them. We paid for year-round, to 12-month service. That improved our response times. I understand the local control issue. I agree with Diane. I'd much rather have local control. But on an issue of this size and with a budget of this size, I understand this district needs the money. I'm willing to let this go to a vote. If these folks want to increase their assessment to pay for that, okay. But as far as I'm concerned, I think this is important, so I'm going to second the motion. I hope it goes to the ballot. I hope you get the response you want. But as far as I'm concerned, public safety is the major issue. And as it's been pointed out in the record here, the majority of the responses in this district are traffic accidents, and those ambulances and EMTs, they have to be available and they have to be able to respond. And we just can't have a jurisdictional disagreement over who's going to show up. We need to have the fastest, quickest response possible. And I'm going to continue, as I sit here, to push for more air attack equipment. I think the best thing we have going in the county of San Diego is to put these fires out before they get bigger than 10 acres. So anyway, that'll be my vote. Thank you. Thank you all for showing up.
Mr. Sprague.
Good afternoon.
we've been here a while. I want to thank those individuals that took time out of their day and took a long car ride to get down here, and then took the risk of sitting up in the podium and doing something they don't necessarily want to do, which is public speaking in this type of forum, which can be quite intimidating. But as for one, I'm a little bit heartbroken by the strife that's facing this community of Julian and Cuyamaca, and not just for what's occurred, but what comes in the future. This is a contentious debate that's going to go on for a very, very long time. There's a lot of history there, and I'm sorry to see this taking place. I, like many of the other commissioners, have done a pretty deep dive into this issue. We've had hundreds upon hundreds of pieces of paper given to us. I've had personal meetings with individuals on both sides of the issue. I have personal friends on both sides of the issue that I've been spending time getting their mentorship, their conversation, and finding out their positions. But at the end, a couple clarifying facts, and I'm probably not going to make any friends because I'm true to form. One, when you're a resident and you move into the backcountry, you're not going to have the services that you have in an incorporated city. And that's just the way it is. If you're going to rely upon the volunteers to back you up, which is wonderful, and I'm a very staunch proponent of volunteerism, it's a great opportunity for the community to be involved. It's also a great opportunity for the young men and women that want to explore the career of firefighting to do so without a whole bunch of prerequisites such as EMT and fire academy and all the things that are necessary to be an actual reserve. And but they also have to be physically fit. They also have to have a certain level of training to be safe before they respond, and they have to be professional out there. And there's professional volunteers, and there's professional career persons as well. Second, the San Diego County Fire Authority should be doing such a great job at protecting our backcountry and working with the local communities that the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District should be asking for this without any disagreement. Just like many other agencies within the state of California, where the small agencies want to be part of LA County Fire Department because they just do an exceptional job. So that should be the goal, is that we're doing an exceptional job. And then the Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District executive staff. Remember, I have left no one untouched on this. I think they've done a really piss-poor job of managing the outcomes and responsibilities of their Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District. They left us in a situation where we don't have adequate equipment maintenance, adequate facilities maintenance, and an adequate budget to move forward. There's a thing to look on the ballot on the initiative coming up to put some additional funds, but I'm not sure if those funds are even going to be adequate going forward. We have a sitting board of directors for a special district that gave us a lawful request for dissolving their district and forming it with the county fire authority. That's what we're addressing here. We can't address the issues necessarily, the he said versus he said that we've heard all day, and I've heard it extensively up to this point. But what we're looking for is some clarity. If you want self-determination and you want control, you're going to get an opportunity to do so when people do the protest. This is going to be the chance for Julian Cuyamaca Fire Protection District residents to step up to the plate, put their money where their mouth is, and put some money on the table and make it happen. They can maintain local control. And the CAL FIRE personnel are still going to be there for the state responsibility areas, and they're going to run those calls. But the medical aids, like Supervisor Jacobs said, the medical aids and the traffic collisions where the rubber meets the road is up to you and your determination in the future. Should you support that as residents of that community? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other commissioners?
Just a couple comments.
Andy?
I too will support the motion. I've been with 2 or 3 other departments that have had volunteers. I've been with 3 other fire departments that have had volunteers. It's a difficult process. When you invest in your community, you give of your time, and the situation changes, be it requirements to stay on board as a volunteer, or be it that volunteers are phasing out for one reason or another. So certainly understand the passion that you brought here on both sides of the issue, and I would certainly encourage you that as this thing goes forward, whatever the outcome, is that you would do damage control and repair your community. It saddens my heart to see that you have people in the same community that have been together, neighbors, go different places altogether, that you're at odds with one another. I think hopefully when the passion dies down and agencies get involved, in this case, LAFCO, by making a decision that hopefully will push this to a ballot measure, that the dialogue that you have within your community will be civil and on point, and certainly our LAFCO staff would be available to help you with questions, as I think would CAL FIRE. The other thing is that being a former firefighter, it hurts no matter what side you're on when you hear that you're not doing a good job. You plug in, not just every day, but your whole life is plugged into you being a firefighter, and there's a lot of pride associated with that, whether you're a volunteer or whether you're paid. So once again, thank you all for being here, and I hope that even though today's outcome may not be pleasing to you, that the end result will work out best for the entire community. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll just make a real quick comment that I do agree with Commissioner Jacobs' motion, and mainly because of the split in the community, that this is the best way for an outcome for the majority of the people to speak. 25% and it goes to a vote. If you get 50% protesting, the dissolution is dead right then and there. So let's keep the community together. I do appreciate the decorum that you have presented today, being chair of this commission, and sometimes the heat of passion, but I appreciate everyone sticking to their timeline. It makes my job a whole lot easier. So with this, is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? At this time, then, we have a motion and a second on the floor to accept staff's recommendation. Roll call.
Commissioner Blakespear?
Aye.
Commissioner Horn?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacob?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Aye.
Commissioner Sprague?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Wells?
Yes.
Commissioner Zapp is absent. There are 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent. The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Motion passes.
Chair, if I could just make one comment before everyone leaves. We have tentatively scheduled the protest hearing for Tuesday, October 16th. Please check in on the LAFCO website for details, but October 16th. Thank you so much.